Maybe starting with Kathy.
Kathy Roth.
Betty Mum.
You're next.
Oh, sorry. Anthony Moore.
Doug Neely.
William Gifford.
Rocky Smith.
Carol Polly.
Jan Pony.
Kurt Sommer.
Wyatt Parno.
And the first item we have is on our agenda. Anybody that can remember what we did a year ago, we are going to go ahead and ask somebody to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2013.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, that was moved by, I think, was that Commissioner?
Moved by Betty and seconded by William.
Okay, very good. And we'll go ahead and just say all in favor, say aye, unless somebody's going to object. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Nays?
Passes.
Abstentions? For those people that weren't here a year ago? Okay, very good. Grant funding. I'm going to make a couple of comments with.
Mayor Neely, can we step back 1 second and do the any conflicts of interest?
Oh yes, that's good. I was going to make a comment, but that's fine. I'll start.
And then we can go to your comment.
I'm a member of the Clackamas County Historical Society. I am on the McLaughlin Memorial Association. I'm a member of the Oregon City. My business is a member of the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. And I think that's it. I don't think that'll have any bearing on any decisions that I would make. Anybody else?
I'm a member of the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, and I don't think I'm going to let that affect my decision on that.
I have seen Rocky in that.
Well,
how many did you've been to?
only less than you. I have less than you. I am on the Oregon City Heritage Coordinating Committee. I'm a member of that group, and I'm also I also work for the school district. And there's at least there's one request from the band, I believe, band and flag team from the high school, and then there's the Rivers of Life project, which has a partnership connected with the high school too. And that will not affect my choice or decision on that.
Carol.
I'm a member of the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also on the Main Street Oregon City Board. I don't see that that's a conflict.
Going to the left.
Okay. Do you have anything?
No, I think.
I'm a member of Clackamas County Historic Society.
Okay.
I ran a triathlon once.
Did you have a swimming leg on it?
Did you do the other parts? Yeah, just running.
Okay, very good. In the previous, I think, at least 2 times we've done this, we, I think, made decisions of not paying forward. This has been done before where revenues continue to come in throughout the year, and my preference is that we not try to tap resources that are coming in later on, that we do it on the amount of funds that are currently available. Are we all? Is that all right with everybody? Okay. Because ultimately, catch up with you, you're going to have less funds to work with later on if you do it that way. With that, we're going to go ahead and get some funding information from the Civic Trust, and I have here our finance director, Wyatt Parno, is the one designated to do the speaking.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the committee. So for funding information, Mayor, I think that you made it kind of easy there with your statement. So there's 2 components to the funding for the granting project. First is the $60,000 that we budgeted, and the committee can feel very comfortable awarding up to $60,000. Second is we have a carryover amount of approximately $7,800 from prior years, mainly because revenues just exceeded the grants that were awarded in those years. As most of you know, and as the mayor alluded to, funding for the program comes from transient lodging taxes that are collected from visitors at the River Shore Hotel and from our RV park. And then payments are remitted to the city monthly. So we don't know, as the mayor indicated, we don't know what the ultimate revenue is going to be until about 6 months from now. So I would feel comfortable recommending that to the committee that you could probably award an additional $5,000 if you deem that necessary. The risks there are that revenue doesn't come in that's sufficient, and we would run a deficit. The other thing would be that that would impact, of course, grants in future years. So next year's grant requests would be shorted by that amount. But I can probably safely recommend that you could add an additional $5,000 if you wanted to. And also, really quickly, there were some handouts that came with the commission packet, or the committee packet, and one was a little spreadsheet that outlines kind of in exhaustive detail all the transactions that go through the program. And we're going to update that next year to be a little bit more easy to understand, so that we'll just show each revenue that came in and then each granted amount and where we're at in that process, and that'll be a lot easier to see what the carryover portions are. So I'll commit to doing that a little bit differently next year. Okay, so $60,000, and you have a little bit of wiggle room with the 5, depending upon how you'd like to use that. Either kind of keep it as a cushion for next year, or include it this year, depending upon what you hear.
If I may ask Michelle a question. We allocate so much money, and of course we won't give the monies that exceed the grant, but I know the actions, disposition of the money you take care of as things come forward. On some of these, is it a case that they simply didn't need all the revenue that was granted to them?
For this grant year, or this previous
This last
grant?
one.
Yes. There was one that there was a small portion of about $130 that was not needed. There are 2 grants that are still not completed, but will be completed by June 30th. So we are still holding those funds aside for when they complete those. But other than that,
Okay,
we are caught up, and those are the only outstanding pieces.
very good. Any other questions at this point?
And that's also probably why you didn't see an exit report, because they aren't done. So once they do get done, you'll see that then next year.
I made a query of Michelle to find out if the year previous to this last one there were there was a failure to get an exit report. That is not the case. So from 2 years ago, everything has come through. I think it's the point where we can enter discussions. If we can ask, I would suggest in the order that these are presented to us, if anybody has any questions or concerns about any of these beforehand. I should indicate that we have all independently ranked these projects. That's an initial ranking based on discussions and that we might have with you and so forth. We may, and some of us probably will, alter those rankings. So we don't show what they are at the beginning. We go through this process, and later on we look at them. We do a ranking 1 through 10. That's because there's 10 applications. We do a ranking of 1 through 10, 1 being the highest ranking and 10 being the lowest ranking. So do we, anybody wishes to ask anything or have any concerns about the Clackamas County Historical Society's request? Go ahead.
I don't know if they're in the audience and would like to come up, but
Yeah, why don't you come up? Go ahead and introduce yourself too, if you will.
Okay, hi, good afternoon. I'm Roxandra Pennington, grant writer, marketing, and program director for the Museum of the Oregon Territory and Clackamas County Historical Society.
I kind of had some concerns about the utilities. You're requesting money for extra hours. And then you're also wanting to include that in the utilities, and I know it's probably okay that we do that. But, I don't know, I just didn't feel good about that piece of it. And I think that things to do, see and do in Oregon brochure 2015 is great. I like that piece of it. I could see that tying to tourism. But I just kind of, you're adding staff, so you're wanting us to pay for the staffing and the utilities.
Well, I can explain the reasoning that I had behind that. Utilities are probably our greatest cost when it comes to
Thanks.
lighting, primarily, throughout the museum. 17,500 square feet divided by 3. We're talking about a large amount of exhibits that are very specifically lit with very specific lighting. And so I just took our utility bill for the days that we're open and that we're bringing the museum up to a certain heat and cooling level and just added an extra 20%.
Right, I get that. But
Okay.
if we're going to tie this to tourism, the utilities, I don't think, in my opinion, should be attached to a tourism grant.
Okay.
It's just my own opinion.
I appreciate that
Just, I understand the
reaction. It's
the-
just that
you can add staffing, I understand that. And I think that will bring tourism in. So I could see that tie-in.
it's more of an increase of our existing staff
Right.
by an extra 20%, and
Right.
then an increase of our utilities by an extra 20%.
Right. No, I understand.
'Cause we've
If you're
got people
open,
knocking on
I
the
know
door,
but
but
I
we're
just
not
kind
open
of
those days.
didn't feel good about that piece of it myself.
Okay.
Excuse me, isn't there also a pending grant from PGE to help with that utility fees?
PGE, we applied for a $30,000 grant over a 3-year period from PGE. So far, they've only committed to $5,000 of that, and part of it has not been dispersed yet that would cover utilities. So far, there are hard costs that they've paid repainting the museum, and paying for the benches, the salmon benches, our contribution to the tribe for those, and building our theater.
I guess my question is, if PGE comes through with their funding for some of the utilities, it's possible that we wouldn't have to, that you wouldn't use all of the grant money if you were to receive this grant.
That is possible, but it's probably, I'm not sure if it's likely or not, because they have not given us an in-writing commitment on the grant proposal that we've given them. And so far, as I said, they've given us $5,000, but towards specific hard costs, and no promises for anything else in 2014, possibly in 2015. We could, if they give us money in 2015, they could, but right now their only commitment is to redo their segment of the museum and update the information about electricity, hydroelectricity in that segment of the museum. So definitely they will not be giving us anything towards utilities this year.
Okay, that answers that.
Okay.
But I guess perhaps my counter to the concern that Commissioner Mumm is expressing is that it's not going to do too much good to have the staffing if you don't have the lights on.
Well, no, I get
Which is-
that. I understand that totally. I just think that part of that could be on them to provide.
Right.
I mean, we can pay for staffing, I understand that, but they should be maybe taking that piece on, because we are going to be looking at limited funds for this go-round.
That's right.
I realize that.
So,
I think
That might be a good
we
area.
have all our individual ways of looking at this. I'll tell you what my major concern is. It is on the salary basis. You're asking for more than the matching funds are. And my fear is not so much with this, but the fact that I'm afraid this could end up being a recurring request over time. And I'm really concerned about the amounts of money that are used for salaries per se. And that's that, and another one is ones that I can understand some support for salaries, but it's so much compared to the match that that is my chief concern.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other questions? Go ahead.
Um,
Okay.
It's easy when the amount of money that you guys are all asking for equals the amount of money we have.
That happened.
Yeah.
So in the future, if we could kind of work together to figure that out. These are so difficult, and this is a good example why
Yes.
they're so difficult,
Yes.
because every one of these projects, we can look at every little thing, and we're trying to make a decision about what is, the best thing, and it's not easy. It's very difficult. We've had this conversation at so many tourism meetings I've been to about, if we can't even pay to have the lights on, which is the case in some of these museums, how can we, be open at all? And so that's a discussion we've had a lot.
But those
I do agree with the staffing. In fact, I was kind of going back to try to look and see if there was anything that said we weren't supposed to spend this money on staffing, because a lot of these grants were not supposed to. I don't think in this one, but I have that fear too that it becomes a place where we're just asking for money for staffing. But then I have to weigh that against the fact: do we want a museum open? And that's extremely hard to compare with some of these other things. We have. Oregon City has a lot of people coming every day to go to museums, most of the time that are closed. And we've worked so hard to get the museums back open. The interpretive center's starting to, come back to some degree. So is the Museum of the Oregon Territory. The McLaughlin House is still, kind of in the same situation. So it's very hard to weigh those conflicts with the alternative, which is to close the museum or have them closed for these people that are coming in. And it's very hard. So at first I ranked this one up pretty high, mainly because, and now I'm thinking about it again, because of just that. I think it's important that these museums are open, period. So I don't know.
I was forewarned that I was kind of stepping on thin ice with this particular
It's tough.
grant application, but we got together, the board got together, and the executive committee got together, and we analyzed what's our greatest need, and that's to be open. And what's our greatest expense? It's flipping 56 circuit breakers when people come to the door unexpectedly,
Right.
and also keeping that one entry-level volunteer coordinator position in place so that we know he's coming in regardless. And so,
I want to compliment you on your effort. I mean, the National Park Service can only keep the McLaughlin House open 2 days a week.
2 days a week.
and there's a certain momentum that builds with being open more. Like we had 80 walk-ins on Wednesday of last week, and we were really impressed. We were just like, wow, something's happening here. People are expecting us to be here, and the word of mouth is really working. We also got about $75 in donations, I think, per day last week. And so there is a certain sustainability that happens from being open. But ball's in your court, so.
No, I want to say, too, that this is very hard. All the grants this year, they're very good. They all bring visitors. They all create, or they all promote tourism, and they all benefit OC. I was really looking at the ones that bring visitors and create and enhance partnerships, and I do think that our museums do bring visitors. The 3 years ago, when you got the grant for the Ralph Eddy exhibit, I thought that was great, and I thought that was a big turning point for the museum. It definitely inspired my kids into photography. And all the programs that you had out of that, the Falcon program and all the different programming that you started has been great. I had a question about the La Tourette Park. That was a grant you got last year. So it's not completed, or what's been the holdup on that?
The holdup has been, how can I say this? It's a volunteer-led project. And the volunteer that led it wanted to kind of get 90 bids on it, and finally found what he wanted to do, and these people have promised to pour the concrete in May. And he's just trying to give me gray hair. But everything else he's ever done has been gotten completed, and they've guaranteed me this will be completed on time as well.
Okay, because I thought that would really help too, to get people up there to look at the falls and
Yeah.
get people into your museum as well.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, yeah, go ahead.
A quick one. And forgive me if I missed it, but do you have like an anticipated number of visitors per year that you?
Right now, we're at about 15,000. We're getting better and better at clocking, at counting every visitor that comes in the door, and we don't have anything to compare. We have a couple of years of gapped information, but that is exactly where we're at right now.
15,000.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have a membership?
Yes, we do.
How many members?
Right now, I think we
Approximately.
have about. Can I call it? Can I put in a call?
No.
Under 200. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
friend.
Yeah.
The numbers.
Ask a volunteer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
guess,
Thank you.
I
Oh, please.
guess that didn't quite answer my question. Well, it was close to what Jan was asking about, is about 15,000 a year. The question that I have is there any way to extrapolate based on the facilities the capacity that you're able to manage now, and a little bit of history of growth, spotty as it is, and project approximately how many more tourists you would be able to serve if you were awarded this grant?
Yes, it would. I can't do it right now. It's a great idea because I have to look at. Not every day is different. Friday, for instance, Fridays are a little slow. Saturdays and Wednesdays are a little high. We're talking about opening on a Tuesday, and I think I'd have to talk to the end of the Oregon Trail about that and say, what's your Tuesday? What percentage of people come in on a Tuesday?
The reason that I ask is I'm not trying to overly simplify the process, because this is a complicated process, and there's some really tough decisions that are going to have to be made tonight. But it seems to me if I could see a ratio as to how much is being asked for versus the potential of return, it would be very handy. I mean, if you think that you could get another 2,000 tourists a year by being open an extra day or two?
That's your guess.
I mean, I think you're trying to
Yeah, I don't mean to lead the
kind of
witness.
pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Right.
I'm not sure that's.
I'm trying to do the math right now. I have a hard time doing math on the spot, but I think that if we could, for instance, if last week was a little high, it was spring break, but if last week we had 80 visitors on a Wednesday, whereas a year ago we were closed on Wednesdays. That's one way to look at it. If you open the doors, people will come, but I can't come up with a solid
Okay,
number right
good
now.
enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. Somebody will.
And I think consistency is good. So right now you're open on.
So I have to, well, Karen Morey of Too Many Hats. I am a board member of Clackamas County Historical Society and a volunteer also. We get a lot of phone calls at the Chamber of Commerce for what do I go and see. The End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center from October through May is closed on Tuesday and Wednesday. If someone calls me and says, I'm coming to town on Tuesday, I tell them we have lots of nice restaurants. Currently, there are no heritage sites available a substantial portion of the year on Tuesdays. So for the museum to be open Tuesday, we would finally have a heritage destination available that day.
How many such requests do you get?
Yeah, that's big.
Year-round, I'd say at least 2 to 3 calls a week. We have a group coming. I'm coming to visit my family. And basically my response to them now is, don't come on a Tuesday unless it's in the summer. So this actually would finally give us year-round something open almost every day of the week. Well, every day of the week, because the Interpretive Center is open on Sunday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Next one is a triathlon, a new applicant. Do we have any questions of them?
Thank you for coming before us.
Yeah, this is
This is great.
they They did it on their own a year ago, and apparently it was
Yes.
quite successful, and I anticipate if they get support here, it'll be even more successful.
Yeah, it's great.
Is there any comments you want to make beyond your application? Come on ahead.
I'm Patrick Bullen, resident here in Oregon City, the race director for the Clackamas Cove Triathlon and otherwise small business owner. And what I really wanted to know is, what triathlon did you do?
Oh, it's been a million years ago. It was the Jurassic.
Were you running from something? All right, well, triathletes are my kind of people. Last year, the city, the internal mechanism of the city paid for a lot of the city resources that I was consuming. I'm borrowing 30 miles worth of roads here, and so it costs money to keep people safe on those roads and all that stuff. So a tremendous amount of effort was put into that, and the city helped out. This year, the city does not want to help out, but they're giving me a go attaboy. So I really appreciate that, and I'm glad we can have it back again. And this year we got a beer sponsor, and that's really going to help. So we've got 400 or 500 participants, making it Oregon City's largest. The participation making it Oregon City's largest participatory sporting event. However, I could run it down I-205 bike path, which would save me exactly the amount of this grant application here. Or I could bring all my runners to beautiful downtown Oregon City so they could see what's going on. As a race director, it's cheaper for me to run it down the 205 bike path around to Gladstone and back. But as a resident of Oregon City, I would really like to see you partner with me to bring it downtown so that we can enjoy a fantastic race in a fantastic city.
Would that be the end point in the race?
The end point of the race is at Clackamas Park.
Okay.
And has to be because the transition areas are there, their bikes are there. If in the future the city wanted to close the roads in the downtown area, which I would love to see, and so would my athletes, then we could possibly look at having a transition area downtown. There's no space right now.
I don't want to see you run it down the 205 trail, please.
No.
I applaud you for starting this event.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it can bring a lot of tourists, especially since we're becoming an outdoor mecca with Newell Creek Canyon and the Cove and our waterways and all sorts of other things. And I also see that you do plan on being self-sufficient. You're still getting started. This is new. And so I understand needing some help. But you also have beneficiaries. We love Clean Rivers and Backpack Buddies. So that's great.
Beneficiaries, so long as we make a profit.
Right.
If I can't pay them out of my own pocket.
Exactly.
So-
but still thinking that way.
And I do. For this.
Don't you have a Visa card somewhere?
And then your organization also has weekly swims at the Cove, so that brings a lot of people in too for the open water. We have the best open water swimming around.
It's fantastic. Please,
Right.
please don't restrict access or parking at the Cove.
Right.
Please don't. It's a gem. I just can't tell you how great it is that it's
Great.
here. People love it.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I don't have a question, but one of the things I will want to say a little bit too is, and I hope at some point before we make a decision, sometimes we just make a decision and throw it out there and kind of change some things around, and it doesn't always let everyone in the audience know exactly why we came to that decision. Each of us can come to a completely different decision that is probably a good one for different reasons. And so I just want you to know that we take these projects and put them in order of which ones we think are best out of 10, and we all probably have different numbers, but the way that I thought about it this time around was, one, things like keeping the museums open. Two, I was looking at events like this triathlon, which, one, it's a very new project.
Yes.
I like to see new projects come to this, especially one that you can look at and say, this could become something big. This could be something that actually is bringing people into Oregon City. And how much is it going to cost us? $2,300.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that great?
I mean, that's perfect. That's awesome. because we want to build these things, and so we weigh that too. And for some of those reasons, I weighted this very high because it is a new thing. It's not asking for a huge amount of money, and we know that it can grow into something that is really a treasure and something that we can be proud of in Oregon City. So I think that those kind of projects are great.
I guess I just sort of second in the sense that I tried to look at what the requests were based on the and the total cost of the project. This one came in at 5.7%. So this project is only asking for 5.7% of their overall budget.
Right.
Some others came in at almost 50%.
Yeah.
To me, that just was like,
Yeah.
not with the given money. So yeah, congratulations. The only other question I had, though, is it said that they are a for-profit, but the profit we do make goes to nonprofits. That's not an issue, correct?
Michelle? I don't think that's an issue.
Well, we'll find out. All the money that you get will go to nonprofits.
So I'll use last year as an example, and we are an LLC. It is for profit. We're not talking money here, but so last year we supported the Willamette River Basin Council, the Oregon City Children's Theater to help them buy a new sound system because their sound system was terrible. I guess I sat through it, and then also the Portland Triathlon Club, which is a nonprofit as well. We're doing the same thing this year. And one of the groups that are on our list would be We Love Clean Rivers and also Oregon City
Right.
Backpack Buddies.
Yeah. My question is just in the application information, it specifically says proposals will not be accepted from individuals or for-profit businesses, period. And so I just want to make sure from this group that we can accept it, even though it is a for-profit, the profits will go to nonprofits.
Yeah, that does kind of sound a little bit weird.
Yeah, and we've not had that case before where it's been that way.
What you might want to do is take a little bit of that and make it proceed money for next year.
Well, I don't think it's a case of him making a decision. It's a case of us making a decision, and we'd almost have to condition it on any profits gained from this event would have to be donated. I don't think we could do it any other way.
Right.
Now, is that a condition you're willing to accept?
Explain that condition.
Any quote profits that you make on this event would be donated to nonprofits.
Okay. So,
Well, wait a minute. I have a different spin on this. I think that, in my opinion, if we're giving the grant money, 2,000 and whatever, the receipts are turned into Michelle, then we've covered our bases. We are covering $2,000, and I can't remember the exact amount of this, and it goes to Michelle, and then Michelle writes the.
That's not the point. The point is that it's a for-profit. We say you can't do much. I mean, the only way I can see around it is that you have to guarantee the proceeds that they get in excess of their costs and so forth have to be given to nonprofits. I don't see how else we could do it. I mean, that's what we require. I don't see how we can change what we require.
That's what we require.
The eligibility under the grant information, if you go to supporting docs, under eligibility, project proposals are accepted from nonprofits such as neighborhood or charitable organizations with a 501c3. Proposals will not be accepted from individuals or for-profit businesses.
I see.
I think this is a hard one because I look at intentions too, and it wouldn't be like, if a Fred Meyer is sponsoring a run or something and they're asking for money, that would be one thing. But this is something that's just for the triathlon, for the area. So it's a tough one, but it does say that. So
You had a question of Doug's proposal.
Yeah. So as far as conditionality, like in my other business, I cost $90 an hour, and so the triathlon is never going to pay for my time. So in this case, you could say the triathlon will never make money because if I take what's the compensation is for what I put into it. However, if you want to say that in the amount of the grant, I would donate that amount to nonprofits and still be able to call Oregon City a sponsor of the race, which is what I'm really after. I really would like that again this year. Then I would do that. If you wanted to make that a condition. Because that money in my mind is going out anyway. To fail to give money to the nonprofits and the amount of the grant would just revoke my right to ask for anything ever again, which I don't want to be in that spot.
Then I guess that doesn't, I mean, I don't know, that sounds weird to me that we're giving you money to give to another group of people.
Well, it puts me into an awkward spot
Yeah.
because I am a for-profit. However, for-profits bring excellent stuff just as well as nonprofits do. to
I
the
understand
city.
that, yeah.
What I'm asking for is to be able to provide a service that enhances Oregon City. And I'm asking you to pay for a portion of that. So this is the venue in which I sit to do that, aware of none other venue that would
Yes.
listen to that. That's what I got.
Of course, we don't have our legal counsel here.
Yeah.
I think, I'm sorry this was missed by staff coming in. And I'm glad you caught it. Because we missed it. I missed it too.
Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get on a legal slippery
I
slope.
think the mayor's right, but I think in most cases, if a for-profit organization or a company or business was doing something like that, they would partner with a nonprofit that would come forward for the grant. I mean, that's because I think he's right. I don't think we can do it. I don't think we can do it in that way. For instance, if it was a partnership of multiple organizations or something, and then the nonprofit came forward for the grant, that's a whole different thing than. So I would almost, and I can't imagine that there's not some nonprofit that you're probably connected with in some way. You've even mentioned some of them that you work with or benefit, and if they would have came forward and asked for it.
What about Friends of the Cove? Is that a nonprofit? Aren't you affiliated with that?
Yeah, and the Portland Triathlon Club, they're
Right.
So we've got to make a decision tonight.
On this.
They're not. I mean, you can't. I don't think you.
it might be a little late. For
I
that.
have
Well-
a suggestion.
I have a suggestion too.
Well, ladies first.
No, but I call and you came up.
She called and I came up first.
Of course,
Um,
that's the way it is.
Because of the fact that we, according to Mr. Parnell, excuse me, didn't mean to wait, we may have a little bit of wiggle room at the end of all of this. Would it be possible?
Oh, which is within this.
Yeah. Would
request,
it be,
yeah.
I mean, we're only talking about $2,300.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible for us to, and I appreciate very much your concern about the legality and the fact that we don't have legal counsel here, but would it be possible for us to consider granting this with a proviso that it meets the legal scrutiny of our legal counsel? And if they said, no, you really can't do that, well, then it rolls into next year, that amount.
That cuts off somebody else.
Well, maybe
Yeah,
not.
Can I
Maybe
have
not,
my
because of the fudge factor.
No, we got more than $90,000 worth of grants. We got
Yeah.
60,000. Even if we add the 5,000 in, we got $65,000. Somebody's gonna be cut out.
I think Betty has another idea.
Betty.
Sorry for all these complications. I think that probably where we should maybe revisit this is because what you're looking for is sponsorship from the City of Oregon City. So you should probably bring that to the City of Oregon City, especially the commission, and ask them if they would support something like this. And then we would ask our city manager if he felt that was appropriate.
And then we're kind of off the hook with the for-profit. It goes back to a city issue because we don't want to open this door, I don't think.
No. I'll ask you a question. Was it recommended by staff to you for you to make this application?
So the background on this is the city not charging me last year began to charge me this year, and I was shocked at how much everything cost. And so at that time, I had missed my opportunity to apply for the tourism board grant, which I had succeeded with last year under the name of the Portland Triathlon Club, which is a nonprofit. And so I raised my shoulders and I went, what am I going to do? And somebody said, well, the OCCIT process is still out there.
Is that somebody a staff member?
And that person was myself.
Okay.
And during
I'm just looking for justification
just
for
clarification.
suggesting that you come to the commission.
Yeah. So with the OC Tourism Group and the grant last year, yes, it was a nonprofit, and I totally missed that this time. So that's my mistake.
I think Betty's got a great recommendation then, because the staff member directed you to pursue this, and we
you
missed
did it.
and you did it, and so we'll see whether we can meet some of those obligations by the city providing like they did last time.
It's very common, and the way I even know this process is even available is that I've been at large-scale triathlons where there's a huge economic benefit to the city, and they'll partner with the triathlon itself, will partner with the city, and the city will extend them an exclusive license for triathlon in that city, knowing that they're going to bring 2,000 people on a weekend in the middle of August.
Right, but then, I understand that, but I also understand that the city manager and directors and department heads all have budgets they have too. Because they have to pay their staff whether they come in or not.
Yeah, I'm just learning about the channels of bureaucracy here.
I see you, Jonathan, but I'm going to go through the commission first.
Yeah.
I guess
There is a lot of bureaucracy.
And this has been an issue for a lot of events, including one that I am in charge of, which, when it comes to the point that the city doesn't want to continue to provide those things that they have for an event for a year or 5 years or 10 years for free, and then all of a sudden wants to pay. And I've seen this go back and forth, because essentially what we're doing is, if we gave you a grant, we're writing a check for $2,300. It's just going to go back to the city, to Public Works, and to whatever. And it's just like, okay, it's kind of a shell game that we're with this.
Well, the commission should have decided to do so. Could give direction.
Yeah.
And
Right.
And then a mechanism that's been suggested, should you make an application next year, is to hook up with a nonprofit to put it forward.
That also, the concern, I guess, the way to have with that is then, that it implies that any group can come straight to the commission to ask for money for an event, which I don't think we want.
Well, we did that last year with Clean Rivers.
Right,
Clean
I know.
Rivers presented theirs also.
And the point is, we're not going to permit anybody to come directly to the commission. We've got a case here that is specific, that came through a granting body at staff's recommendation, the wrong recommendation, but recognizing the effort that they've gone through to put it forward. I think this makes it semi-unique. In any case, I think we're
It's getting harder.
We're going to have to. I think we're going to have to pull it just because of the legalities of the situation. But I suggest that you make your case to the city commission.
Yes.
Okay. Like during the public comment time, just say, here's what I want to do. Can you do that?
We can get it as a specific agenda item. Towards the
late
beginning.
for June 22nd.
No,
No.
we can get it on the next commission agenda.
Which is Wednesday.
Maybe we need. Maybe it better be.
Can I make a comment, Mayor?
At the next
Yes.
meeting. Yeah.
On process. So it's pretty clear that the bylaws will not allow a for-profit agency to come in and be awarded a grant. So this body under the bylaws should not do that. That's clear. So we're there. Just for the record, a bureaucracy is defined as a body of non-elective government officials. Sometimes that has a negative connotation, but I'd be careful how we say that. And I want to clarify that the effort that we put through on the triathlon, which is a fantastic organized event, requires additional resources of staff time that aren't in place that are required to be mobilized for the event.
Yeah.
So that is an additional cost to the city. Just want to make
Yes.
sure that that was clear. For you to be on the agenda for the commission sounds like a good idea. Probably not this Wednesday because that agenda has been set.
Yep.
So my recommendation would be to send an email to Katie Riggs, the city manager's assistant, and ask that you be added to the agenda for a future commission agenda, and we'll get you on there, okay?
And that would be the 16th, is that right?
Yes. it's the-
16th is.
We'll do it as soon as possible, but I think you said before June, right?
Yeah, that's when that all comes down.
So we got plenty of time. Thank you.
No, we'd have to make a decision in work session. Yeah.
Jonathan have a comment?
Jonathan, do you have a comment that
Jonathan Stone, Director of Main Street, Oregon City. My curiosity was, I know a number of our events face similar situations of having to cover the cost of the city hosting an event, and so I guess this is a two-part question. And it might just be a matter of process and that the ship has sailed, but is it possible for the beneficiary of the grant to change? So I know, isn't it possible for governments to apply for the grant, or is it just nonprofit organizations?
The OCCIT,
Yeah.
we've had government aid, right? Yeah.
In the past. And that kind of goes back to what Rocky was saying. At some point, there was a government with flower baskets and some other past grants, but eventually that turns into a project that the city then funds out of general fund.
the answer is it can't happen this time?
That's what I was, after I raised my hand, that conclusion became clear.
Yeah.
So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll try to work something out in any case.
All right. Well, thanks for giving me at least a path.
Yeah, yes. We're very sorry, but I think
And my
that everybody
apologies.
here supports a new event.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. What's not to like? It's a triathlon.
In Oregon City.
McLaughlin Memorial Association.
Rocky had something to say.
Oh, go ahead. No,
I-
and I'm ahead of myself anyway. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted, and I will save this discussion until it comes forward. I think I don't feel good about that. I don't feel good about it coming to the city commission, but I can talk about that later. It's an awesome event. I want it to happen, but I don't want to get into a process of inviting specific events to come directly to the commission.
No, I
It's-
totally agree
I have
with you.
real concerns about that.
Well, this would have been an issue other than
I know.
right. Main Street, Oregon City, for the OC website grant.
We're at McLaughlin Memorial.
Tonight.
What am I looking at here? McLaughlin Memorial Association. My apologies. Please come forward. Do you want to, Denise, or is somebody?
Denise?
I'm only here to answer questions.
Okay.
From back there?
Are we doing this in order?
Well,
This is the website?
I was doing it on the listing that we had here.
The original listing.
The
Yeah.
original listing is different.
I was doing by
This one, it is. The McLaughlin Memorial.
I guess I was doing them in the alphabetical order. So the
That's up on the screen is McLaughlin after
Okay.
the Cove.
Okay.
right.
Well, the list I have has Main Street next, so I guess.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, and that's what I was going by. But that's not the
that's
list we
true.
had
You had the
before.
same list I did.
Yeah. So
And I'm looking at the.
Hi, everybody. Denise McGriff. I'm the treasurer of the McLaughlin Memorial Association, and I assure you, we are a 501(c)(3) city.
Is there anyone else in business? This would be a lot easier.
Does anybody have any questions? This is an ongoing request that have gone over several years, but it's not very much.
It's an
And-
expanded request this year.
I noticed that.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
We have been asked to be open on Friday, and much to my chagrin, because I spent quite a few Saturdays there last year, I kept thinking, well, maybe now I'm going to be there Friday and Saturday, but as a volunteer. But that's the That's the expanded request.
What do you? I'm sorry.
Michelle, are you the only one that sees the exit report?
No, it was in
they
there.
all get
Yeah,
copies.
no,
I
it's in
have, I
there.
have all of our stats.
Yeah.
In the exit report,
Yeah.
and I've been keeping them meticulously per Michelle's instructions.
Yeah. She includes them.
Go ahead.
So, are you asking for more than before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Last
so-
year, we actually didn't spend all the grant because one of our paid docents got this incredibly fabulous job in Japan, and he left about halfway through. So we felt it would not be worth our while to hire somebody for a month and a half. So the volunteers, like myself, stepped up and filled that additional time that he would have been there, which is why we didn't spend all the money. So
Probably
we
less work for you to do it yourselves than train somebody for a month.
Oh, it's
Okay,
always good
so-
to train somebody, but it would have been really hard to train somebody for a month. So,
Okay.
Last year was 1,390.
Okay.
and we didn't spend all of that.
The year
So
before,
here-
however, was 2,220.
But we didn't spend it all either.
Here's the problem.
I'm very meticulous about our expenses, and for those of you that know me, I am a person who will try to get the most bang for the buck. That's about how I would say it. So if I can find an opportunity that saves money, I will take that opportunity as long as it doesn't compromise the quality of our program.
And you guys are all volunteers with this organization,
Yeah.
correct?
We are. We have a part-time paid staff person who works basically a little less than 20 hours a week. We are open, as Doug noted, at the McLaughlin House on Friday and Saturday, and we are hearing the bad news again from our congressman that it's very unlikely that the federal government will be increasing any funds. The Park Service did last year, I think I said in my letter, after 6 years received a 1% pay increase,
Right.
which was, I'm sure that got eaten up by taxes.
Sure.
So they are, there are constrained circumstances as to, we would like to be open at the McLaughlin House Wednesday through Saturday. It's not physically possible, and unfortunately we could probably do it with volunteers, but because of federal regulations there has to be a paid employee at the site.
Which it does not apply to the Rose Farm because they
No.
don't own that.
No, they do not. Question, Rocky?
It's the same thing as a home census.
A very painful process is getting
Just go ahead.
even more
Just
painful.
please feel free to ask it. If I
Every
can
year,
answer it.
every year we try to fix certain problems, and I think by sometimes fixing them, we
Causes
don't.
more problems.
Create
So-
more.
At the end of last year, one of the things that we changed was one that we required a representative to be here from the organization to go through this process because we felt if they wanted money, at least they could show up, right? Another thing that we did was say that you can't ask for more money. You have to ask for less money every year in a reoccurring grant.
Yeah.
If it's a different project, you can ask for whatever. Because what we've had in the past is events that came and asked for $5,000, and then the next year they asked for 10 because they got it, and the next year they asked for 20.
Yeah.
And we stopped that. The problem with that, however, is for a grant that's asked for $2,000. That means they're going to constantly get less and less and less, as opposed to someone that comes here and asks for $100,000 and then asks for 20 the next year. Or so, unfortunately, based on that, we can't give more than what they asked in the past. We can give $1 less than last year. And that's one of the things that we put on there as a stipulation. So I don't know that we can get around that either.
No, that's fine. It's
Because this is another project which is a small amount of money. We should just do it. It should be done. That museum should be open. period.
Right, I agree. And
I
maybe
totally get
some
it.
of these we need to look at as a commission at some point when we're looking at the budget.
Well, actually, I think this decision was made at a special meeting of this body. Did we do it at the commission?
We did it at our last meeting, but what happened was everyone that got the grants left, and then we made all those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw something out there and see if it works.
Done.
Could
Maybe.
I think I
Okay.
know what you're.
could
I'm
could we
happy to
roll
stay.
over? Could we roll over
What they
the
didn't
monies
spend
that
from-
were unspent from last year and support this effort?
What's the price difference between the two, I Well, guess? are we,
I'm asking. First of all, I'm asking whether we can do it or not,
Yeah.
rather than look at the specific monies involved.
Wyatt says yes.
He said yes, or he said yes. He understood my question, or yes, we could do it.
The monies have been, any funds that were not used in years past, projects that didn't need the full funding, the monies have been included as part of the funding that, available balance over and above.
No, I'm saying whether we could take and utilize those monies that weren't spent and
On the
roll them
last
over
one.
to this project.
And add.
Is there anything that precludes that based on the decision that we made at the last meeting?
So you're
My
talking.
take on it is that excess money that did not get taken
Mhm.
is fungible. That, and the fact that it's gonna go into a big pot and you can't earmark part of that for the same program to increase the request this year.
I think that we're getting the cart before the horse
Yeah.
here, in that we're not ranking what if we don't end up ranking this one at all?
Yeah.
True.
Okay,
But
right.
It's going to be high up there because
I'd rather make
it's
the
a museum
decision at
opening.
this point than have it rank out there and say, no, you don't get
So-
the money.
I would like to say something. I looking through the documents, and I found on the OC Tourism application information on page 2, and it says prior applicants in our projects can apply for funding each fiscal year. Reoccurring projects are subject to a reduction in funding upon review by the OCCIT trustees.
But not
So,
required.
It doesn't say required. Do you see that, Michelle?
Under that information?
It's on
Yes.
the grant itself, yeah, except the minutes say it differently.
So we left
The,
it.
so the
we
minutes
left it
say it
flexible
differently
enough.
Yeah.
than the
Yeah.
information
Yeah.
they
Because we
got.
changed it.
So it's, but this is the information they got.
They got the
Yeah.
information.
So they did not get that change, is my
Can you read
point.
that again?
Yeah.
Prior applicants in our projects can apply for funding each fiscal year. Reoccurring projects are subject to a reduction.
They're subject to it, that means there is a reduction. If it says they may be subject.
Upon review.
Yeah,
Subject to a reduction in funding
you're right.
upon review by the OCCIT trustees.
so that means it's in place.
I would say it was too. Okay.
So then back to your question.
Still seems conditional.
It does. I would change it to must because upon review does seem like it's conditional. Upon review.
And last year that, for this current fiscal year, they did not use $106. So that would not make up the difference between the grant of 1,390 last year to the 1,898 this year.
Right.
So the most we'd be able to award them would be $1,389, which is what is $1 less than what they received last year.
Would that help them?
Well, I'm sure it'll help.
Yeah, of course it does.
Well,
Yes, that would help them.
better than poking an eye with a sharp stick.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
With that, which is, let me come here just a minute.
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to find out the order they are on our.
Now you're going to Main Street.
Okay. Now we're going to, what I got here is the same order that I was trying to go in before. Main Street, Oregon City is next. We have, with that, I think you, Jonathan, you can come in for two in a row, I believe.
Teaser.
Yeah, the McLaughlin Memorial Association and stuff. Yeah, third.
Which one are we doing first?
We're going to do the one in the order we have them here on Oregon City website. I guess the question I'm going to ask you to start off with is, to what degree do you feel that the website will function for tourism? I'm sure you can come up with a good answer.
I mean, the website serves a lot of functions, but the way we're designing it is with an eye towards the destination experience. So, for instance, if you notice in the grant application, it mentions cost for content, with an understanding that vivid, eye-catching imagery, well-curated content costs money, especially photography. If you are unable to find photographers to donate their time, but that that Main Street, downtown, Oregon City as a whole needs to have a digital presence in order for people to pull up and see downtown or a specific business or place, and then get that feeling that you want them to experience when they come here for the first time. If they come to a website or something that is not does not convey the emotion that we expect them to experience here, then we may lose them, and they may not actually end up coming. So it's about translating the physical experience into the digital realm, and then also based upon the research. And the research that I provided was provided by Clackamas County Tourism, Mount Hood, whatever they call themselves. And that research suggested that people who especially are going to coming from longer travel times are going to research their trip before they take it, so that research supports the role that a website could play in tourism. And from our perspective, there really are no website properties outside of Mount Hood's own website that addresses that are formatted in a way for tourism in terms of vivid content, imagery, that sort of thing, and that they're not. Mount Hood isn't really selling Oregon City. In fact, if you click on shopping, it brings up Clackamas Town Center as a thing to do in Clackamas County for tourism, for shopping. So we would like to reframe the conversation in a way that benefits downtown Oregon City, and then by extension the rest of Oregon City.
Any questions? William?
Oregon City, Main Street definitely needs a better website. There's no question about that. And it really deserves the best website that it can, because many times, as you well know, it's first impressions. You either like it or you don't even bother looking at it again. The question that I have is, how much bidding was done on getting the best price for this? I mean, was it about $10,000 for the website?
We reached out to BDC, which, as you know, is a local downtown business, but they assured us that the price that they were willing to do it for is a price that they would never offer another organization. And so in terms of, and that's reflected in the grant application in terms of in-kind dollars and effort, that it's, I mean, will we shop around? And, I don't think you can get anybody to do it for less than $10,000, especially considering the scope that is included. But if the commission would like us to shop around,
I just didn't know if you had or not. I think it's great that we use a downtown business to help downtown build its own website. I think it's a great idea. I just didn't know if there had been any comparisons.
We hadn't shopped it around specifically, but there's like Paul Culp of Super Genius. And he just went through a website redesign, and so based upon the understanding of scope, we don't believe it's possible to find anything less expensive than $10,000.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I have a question. And this really shows my ignorance on web design, but has there been any consideration to looking to the universities to get students to do some of this work as opposed to a professional. I guess what I'm saying is that I look at the 2 grants from Main Street, Oregon City, and you're asking for 44% of our total grant amount to award. This one is asking 38.9% of your project to be funded by the OCCIT and 27.6 for Main Street. And I know you're not really Main Street, but my concern is that's a huge amount of money going to one organization when all we have is 60,000. So I was trying to think of any other kind of creative ways that maybe we could reduce the costs a little bit.
There's a place for. Is it possible to involve schools? But when you're looking at establishing a relationship to make this something that can be maintained professionally and is attentive in terms of always operating, that when you involve students or something like that, it opens the project up for problems down the road. And I ran a student consulting program for Boston University, so I kind of understand how students work when it comes to doing projects for nonprofit organizations. That it's we believe we can get the best product by working with a professional company that I can walk down the street to and have something addressed. I mean, to that end, our website was hacked in November, and it was a fire drill to get it fixed. But if we had to rely on another organization or group of students to fix it, I don't imagine that we would have been able to do so as quickly as possible.
Well, the 10,000 you're suggesting is for the website coding and design, not for maintenance. Am I misunderstanding?
BDC it's sort of an unstated warranty, and they never charge for bug fixes or anything like that on our current website, and they said that they wouldn't intend to do so on this website. So
they would provide maintenance free of charge for the lifetime of the website.
I don't know what the time window is, but that's been our relationship with them in the past, and that's what they suggested that their relationship would continue to be.
Technology is important, absolutely, but I think it's important for all of our historic museums and everything. I was kind of surprised about this technology request because I don't really see the tourism to Oregon City. I mean, I see that you can make it beautiful. You can do wonderful things with websites. I totally agree. But it's going to be hard to calculate how you're going to drive tourism.
It's very measurable.
Yeah.
I guess there would be a point of them having a website if it didn't bring people in. I mean, I think that's the basis of it.
And the website provides us a platform to, Main Street sort of reimagining its marketing program, and so once we sort of, as the application suggests, we're actually undergoing a large rebranding effort of downtown, and once we sort of get all these things in order, the website is just one component of that will become a tool upon which we can reach out to the top of the hill, but that's not tourism. But as we start to strengthen the message and the brand of Oregon City or downtown Oregon City as a destination continues to evolve and attract more people, having a stable, well-designed website is an essential piece of infrastructure for tourism.
I have a question. We provide part of the funding for downtown.
Yeah, 50.
Right.
The City of Oregon City does.
And as that happens, Wyatt, you may know this, but is there a requirement, like in other government agencies, that you have at least 3 bids?
It used to be.
I'm not 100% sure, but that would, so once we've made the allocation of the $50,000 to Main Street, Oregon City, that entity is not a governmental entity that would be required to go through the bid process.
We just give them.
Is my fairly educated guess.
We just give them the money.
Okay, but I'm trying to decipher here. It seems to me that the process would need to happen.
probably be advisable that it happen. I think that the organization Main Street Oregon City is a separate organization from the city, so so they're not subject to the state requirements and our own internal our own commission requirements for obtaining bids and the process that we have. I don't think they're subject to that because they're a separate entity. It's probably a good idea for them to follow those types of
Exactly. I think it'd be a good
processes.
idea for us
Yeah.
to be covered that way as well.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the committee would like, and they choose to fund this project, we'd be happy to request other bids for the project.
Sure. But I know also it's important to keep business local. I understand that too.
Any other questions on this one? Go ahead.
I have a tough time with this one too, and I understand. I mean, I'm a graphic design person. I get what you're saying. I mean, what you see when you go to the website does have a huge influence, I think, on what people do and how it promotes the city. But I weigh that against the funding that we already give to Main Street, which is huge. Which was we're going into our third year. The city originally, when Main Street was formed, stipulated that we would give $50,000 to get the Main Street program started. That was never intended to be an annual contribution. It has been since, though, however, and we also then created the district that funds the rest of Main Street. It's 3 years old, so this website's only 3 years old that exists, which I'm sure cost a fortune, even if it's bad. Yeah.
Oh,
it's only. I mean, Main
I don't
Street's
believe
only,
it. Carol, can you speak to that? I don't know if.
I don't know how old it is.
Well,
exactly.
Main Street's 3 years old.
No.
The website doesn't predate.
I
Main
think
Street.
I think that's. I'm not sure.
I'm fairly certain that our website was donated, the present one.
Yeah, I'm sure it was, because you guys were starting up.
Right. It was just.
Okay,
It's
but
just a
it's all-
basic blog template. It's not designed in any way.
No, it's a canned kind of.
Yeah, it's canned.
Yeah.
And it's not. Website. It's not mobile optimized. That's what you're looking for.
RWD, yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
But it is only 3 years old.
Yeah. Let me address three things, perhaps not in the same order.
We don't know what order they're in.
Well,
so-
I was thinking in the order that they were mentioned. First of all, the usefulness of a website in increasing tourism, I think, is difficult to underestimate. Having a website for today's travelers is almost.
It's important, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's yeah.
But I have to go back to the percentage.
It will be difficult to measure how much more tourism it will create. I think that it would encourage people that might be on the fence. It's difficult to imagine how much new tourism, and that's one of the criteria, is to increase the tourism, not just make it a more pleasurable experience. So that's thing one, is to how to measure how much more tourism there's going to be. It's a difficult thing to measure. And I understand about websites analytics and how they can be analyzed as to how many people look at it. That doesn't always necessarily translate into how you track back. Somebody's sitting down in this restaurant, somebody's purchasing this product. How do you know that they came because of the website? I'm just saying it's a difficult thing to measure. The second thing is when we say that we already give $50,000 a year to Main Street, I think it's a different we. I think that's.
Oh, I agree.
The city.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the city.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
Okay, yeah. So,
Thank you.
Yeah,
So it's
the-
not,
Right, thank you.
it's not the
yeah,
grant.
These are two
That's
different
good
buckets that
Right.
we're,
Yes.
that we're
Thank
talking
you.
about entirely. So I have no issues with the fact that this is an appropriate grant for the OCCIT, because I think it will increase tourism. I'm just not clear on how much more tourism it will engender. And the last comment that I had to make on it is, it appears as though by some of the comments written in the package that the website design, if not already begun, the conceptual pieces of it are already being worked on.
In order for us to understand the scope, in order to put together a grant, we had to conceptualize what the website would be in
Yeah,
order
it's a
to
bootstrap type of thing, I
yeah.
understand.
You know, the amount of funding, because that $50,000, you know, is being spent on other things.
Don't talk about the $50,000.
So,
Yeah, don't bring that up. That's
but to the point of the percent of cash requested versus the total cost of the project, I would suggest that that's somewhat understated in a way, because the website will be maintained by our staff and our volunteers moving forward once the asset is created, and it will be maintained by BDC moving forward. So there's for this thing to be successful in the years to come, it is the amount of investment and time put into it will pale in comparison to the initial investment that we're seeking to make to create it.
Then the last comment that I would have to make on that is regarding concerns about how old the existing website is now, and it's already basically dysfunctional. And I think there's a few things. First of all, it was probably not a professionally designed website. I mean, it's pretty obvious by its performance right now. And secondly, is the life cycle of a website today is like a mayfly. I mean, it's
if you turn it on, it's outdated.
It's almost there, yeah. And it's ironic, I think, in today's society we depend so much on a website to drive traffic. You know, I mean, I would be out of business if I didn't have a website. I wouldn't have a business without a website. So it's essential. Question is how long is it going to last? That's another tough call. It's another tough thing to imagine.
I would say our what I presume is a free website that we currently have was.
I hope you didn't have to pay for that.
I hope we didn't have to pay for it either.
I'd like to find out. I'd like to find out, and I will try my best to find out, because I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right, because but
I don't know.
It was conceived with a different set of priorities in place, and the marketing agenda that the board is pursuing has vastly different priorities in terms of creating a dynamic retail and experience-driven district.
Brand.
Yeah, a brand-driven district, which is something that we've been so busy working on other things up to this point that a website was the least of our worries. So, but now we have time to focus on how to pull all those marketing pieces together.
Still brings me back to the purpose of the grant is the tourism. And as you may have figured, we have more applicants than funds to give out. I think it's important. I just don't know how important it is among all the other tourism activities.
I'm sure that all that's going to be reflected in our respective rankings.
And I would just add that we intend our website to promote the other tourism assets in town. And that any traffic we get means, especially if it's a tourist eyeball that's looking at our website, we want to throw everything at them that they would possibly respond to in order to make a decision to come to Oregon City. Hopefully, eat at our restaurants, shop at our shops, but also go to the end of the Oregon Trail, any of the other sort of historic and sites. That's advantageous for us to do that.
It's a good application.
I agree.
Will your new site link to other sites that are available?
For sure. So basically, especially for downtown stakeholders and businesses, everybody's going to have their own page. And my understanding is that we'll be doing the same thing for all of the other historic sites in which they can then link to their website as well. And so we'll be able to all cross-understand where all this traffic is going and how beneficial it actually is to each other.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it'll serve as a comprehensive brochure for Oregon City in general, and it won't need reprinting. So
Not
that's good.
reprinting.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Sit right there. Don't move. First City, Oregon City. I guess I'd start off by saying we'll be faced with a similar situation that Commissioner Smith says we'll have to reduce your amount. It's identical to what it was last year, I believe.
Yeah, the amount.
I think it is, actually.
Yeah, it is.
It's identical due to the increased scope. I wasn't aware of whether or not I needed to reduce it by $1 or not, but
Technically, a penny, I think, is all you need.
Yeah. But we know what a great event it is. I mean, there's no question in my mind that it's one of our probably one of our top 3, and I think our top 3 are asking for money. But anyway,
It's probably the top one now. I have a comment on this one.
Go ahead.
I think, and it's one of the larger events that we have in the city. I think that one of the things I appreciate, and I think part of the conflict I had with the website is just because there's 2 grants here, so I'll be nicer to you on this one. Because I mean, the truth is these are all good projects, and trying to weigh them against each other is, like I said, impossible. I like what. First of all, general comment. What you're doing with Main Street right now, I'm really proud of. So I appreciate the effort being made to refocus, to look at the strategy, to do all the things that I think we expect you to do with Main Street now that you're the new Main Street manager. The thing that I like too about this is I don't necessarily mind grants coming back year after year if they are important projects, but I think it's even easier to give money to an event that comes back year after year if they're making an effort to change it and to enhance it and not just do the same thing year after year. And I think I have a feeling that that's what you're doing. The First City Festival has had numerous reincarnations, I guess, and to go the original First City Festival way back in 1990s, when that name was kind of phrased, was really heritage based, celebrating the city's history. It's then been an art festival and kind of morphed into a wine and an art festival. But I see that with downtowns kind of refocusing on the First City as an important concept, that this heritage piece is coming back to the festival. And I think that is a good thing. And I think that's a piece that could really bring an attention to tourism that maybe the First City Festival hasn't been doing the last couple of years as much. And I know that the First City Festival and Main Street in general is making huge efforts to partner with almost every heritage organization, which I don't think has ever happened. So I think this is definitely project that is going to be. I'm going to have to rescore them all anyway, so I won't tell you where it was on the because that doesn't matter anymore. But I think this is one of those projects that I feel really good about.
If I might share, so it's we started to look at the sort of the new imagery of the event,
Cool.
and really it's this idea that we're positioning ourselves in Oregon rather than a bubble unto our own. And that's what the First City means, is we're the first of something. And in this case, it's Oregon. You could really say west of the Rockies. But how to infuse that into the event is what we're looking to do.
You could put on the map Oregon, Idaho, Washington, British Columbia.
Right.
Western Montana.
Right.
Of course, nobody would know what it was. That's true.
We were going for a distinctive shape that people would recognize rather than a blob.
I have a question. And that is, do you have any way of measuring the difference to the merchants downtown that's come in over this day, over the various years that you've had this festival?
In terms of their direct benefit? At least for some of the events downtown, and I will throw kudos out to the car show. is that Coffee Rush, if for anecdotal evidence, has their best day of the year on that day. For our restaurants, I would say any of the events that go on downtown, they're maxed, and they can't turn any more people or any more dollars through their door. For retailers, I don't have any specific evidence, especially because we have so many new retailers downtown, but that you're looking at either direct day spend, or you impressed people that have come back to Oregon City or have come to Oregon City for the first time and now know that it is a destination that they want to return to and then spend again. So it's hard to track. But in general, at least for restaurants, it's the best days. All these events are their best days of the year.
My point in that is that we discussed earlier in trying to make these events self-sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that would mean the merchants that are benefiting from this picking up a little bit more of the tab each time, rather than us subsidizing it.
Well, last year we got around $7,000 in sponsorships to support the event. This year we're going out and asking for 20. And so part of the expense related to this event is to polish it and make it more attractive to future sponsorships. So in order for us to go from a maximum sponsor of $2,000 to $5,000 this year, we have to put on a good show. And then we have to turn around and then start soliciting sponsorships in October of next year. Mind you, I was hired in October of this year. So that it's our intention to ratchet up the sponsorship and then to operationalize this event as it moves forward. But due to the larger scope and due to the retooling of it, that's where some of the cost increases came for this year.
Okay. Thank you.
My comment is, I think it's great, but the next event that we're going to look at is the antique fair. And every year they've been asked to cut their expenses in half or more, lower their expenses. So that's something that I think I would really encourage you to look at for future. Because they started
In terms of
with-
expenses?
Well, they started
in
with
terms
a
of grant
grant request of 10,000, I believe, and from the direction of the committee, they had been asked to lower that every year. And now this year they're, I believe, at 5,000.
Last year it was
So, I mean, I just think
6,500.
that Kathy's comment is
Okay, so they're just
correct.
taking it down a little.
They are every year.
Every year, you guys, you have to take this down because we have to give grant requests for new people that come out.
I understand that, and we're looking for strategies to reduce our reliance on the grant. So, for instance, this year we've increased we're planned to increase the footprint of the event. So there's only two ways we can, increase revenue, and that is increase sponsorship or increase the product that we're selling.
Sure.
And so a lot of this that we're looking at are, selling bracelets this year for alcoholic beverages. Increase the number of tents, raises several $1,000s. So we've drastically increased our revenue opportunities, but there's not a track record in terms of these strategies that we put in place. I certainly hope that if we're successful as the way we intend to be, is that our need for grant dollars will be substantially less next year.
And of course, we as a body can actually reduce. I mean, the requested amount is not what we need to put forward. And we can change the laws ourselves.
Right.
To meet our objectives.
But I would suggest the $20,000 we're hoping to raise in sponsorships is a challenging task.
Sure. Thank you.
The flip side of that comment about asking less each year is sort of counterbalanced by offering more.
Right.
And I think that by expanding the program, by increasing the sponsorship, and by doing all of those things, sort of offsets a little bit about it's the same program, but it's an expanded program. That gives it more weight to me.
Any other questions?
No, but I just have a suggestion that you look at the colors very seriously on your.
Oh yeah, Duck fans might be offended.
Yeah.
This is a revision 2, so there's still more revisions.
Black and
The
white.
first one was still on me.
I'll just show you the black and white one.
Okay.
Orange and black.
Saw that too.
What are, does Clackamas Community College have colors?
Ask
Yeah,
Vicky.
but I can't off the top of my head. I think it's blue and gold. I think.
Red and blue?
Well.
Those primary colors.
Thank you. I think that would be it then. Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the McLaughlin Memorial Association. Now it's the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, the 19th Annual Antique Fair.
But who's counting?
Oh, yeah.
That was preceded by a compliment.
You know, I'm going to start, and I generally don't have negative comments, but I'll tell you something. This is an exception. You have two. I'm going back actually to the 2013 presentation that you made. It does not say explicitly in your grant request that it occur on Main Street, but where it lists what communities' resources would be used, there's at least 4 or 5 of them that are tied to Main Street. You had 2 letters of recommendation, and I'm going to refer to both of them. This is last year's. Over the last 17 years, the Public Works Department has been part of Oregon City Air Antique Fair. In fact, it was a time when city staff coordinated this event. Over the last 13 years, the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce did so. Those 3 or 4 years that the city did that was specifically to drive tourism in Main Street.
Yes.
And they were requested then to continue that effort.
And they had a volunteer coordinator on staff to do that.
The only other recommendation, that was from Public Works. The other recommendation was from the then Executive Director of Main Street Oregon City, Lloyd Purdy. I'll quote the last 2 or 3 sentences. Every time a major event is held in downtown Oregon City, our local community and our local chamber stand to benefit. And every time the words Oregon City are in print in a positive image, our community stands to gain. Thank you for producing this event in downtown Oregon City. I think that was the expectation of Main Street when they supported this event. I realize it was your board of directors that actually made this decision to move it to the interpretive center, but whether explicit or not, I think probably most of the people on this board that approved of it made the assumption it was going to be another Main Street event. And I don't know to what degree various supporters of this were told of the change in decision, but I think it was an ill-thought one, and your current proposal indicates you probably thought so too, although it wasn't quite put in those words, that you're bringing it back to Main Street. But I really think that there should have been a mechanism to consult this board since it made the grant, I think, under the assumption that this was a Main Street effort. And I'll finish with that lecture. And I'm not, I'm not, at one point I was on your case, I think, Karen, but the then chair of the board said, no, it wasn't Karen's fault, it was the board's fault. So my apologies at one point for not being too polite to you.
I'm glad they shared the blame, and I will take it from the gentleman who's also up at 2:30 a.m. with the rest of us dealing with this.
As it was at the other side.
Yes. At the time we applied, our intention was to be on Main Street. Some roadblocks arose after the grant was approved, that led us to feel that the Interpretive Center would be a better location. If it hadn't rained last year, I think we'd have a little more reasonable opinion of what happened. But we got a 50-50 opinion poll from both the attendees and the vendors, that half of them liked it, half of them didn't. There were some advantages. The most interesting thing, that the feedback that meant the most to me, were the number of people who said it lacked the ambiance of Main Street. And you cannot transplant ambiance. So we are planning to be back on Main Street. I don't see any reason we would change our minds this time. A few of the roadblocks have kind of resolved themselves, and I have got to hand it to Jonathan. He's come up with a new idea for a kind of across-the-board street closure, so that any of the large events that we have on Main Street, we could follow the same method of closing off streets. That's a slightly larger footprint than we've done in the past. That addresses the biggest concern we had, which was traffic control. Part of the issue was the bridge reopening, the two-way traffic on 7th, the two-way traffic on Main, and trying to make it safe for the vendors and the shoppers. Jonathan's plan resolves a great deal of that and also enlarges the footprint. So along with First City's idea, we have potential for additional booth space, which will also, is one of the reasons that we actually greatly decreased. We went from 6,500 last year. We're only asking for 5,000 this year. Next year it may be 4,899.
No, go for the 999.
999. Okay, I was going to go 11, but it's okay. We don't consider last year a complete mistake, but it was a good learning experience. We were able to look at the antique fair in another way, but you can't pick ambiance up and move it to the other end of town. So Main Street is where we belong.
The fact that you don't realize that it was a big mistake is concerning. I will say that everyone in town pretty much knew it was a big mistake. Here was my concern all the way from the beginning, and this was the exact move, by the way, that First City Festival made when it completely went under. Moving from actually the Carnegie Center at the time to the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, where it died a horrible death and then got revived later. I think that is a very valid discussion to have, considering we look at these as investments into events that we've been funding this event for a long, long time, and that's a big risk to take with our money. And it didn't go well, and it really definitely changed my opinion on where to put it on the map, which I'd hate to say that, because it was one of the best events. It was probably the best event in the city. We can't say that anymore. We really can't.
It wasn't last year.
And so I think that's unfortunate, and because we've put a lot of time and money into it, and to see an event that I loved going to. I did not enjoy going to it. I only went down to kind of see it, but I didn't enjoy getting down there. It was just not the same event, and so I want to see it build back. But I think that was a huge mistake, and I think whether or not you want to admit that, you're definitely bringing it back. So I think you realize it, but just know that it probably will affect the funding for this year. At least it does in my rankings.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Yeah, your turn.
Okay, hi, I'm Vicki Smith. I'm chair of the board for the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce. And I did serve on the board last year when these painful and tedious conversations took place, and I can assure you that the decision was not made lightly.
I know.
And as you all know, in the back rooms of meetings, there's more out there than is on the public face, and there certainly was a lot of discussion. We did make every effort to provide transportation. We had the trolleys picking up at the end of the Oregon Trail and transporting people downtown, because as the chamber, we care about our entire city. So it certainly wasn't made like, get out of here, downtown, we don't want to be part of you. There's nothing more than we want to be part of than downtown. And one of the moves we've made, which I think is an excellent move, is we now, as the Chamber Board, have Jonathan Stone, his position, serving ex officio, and Amber Holbeck, our executive director, serves ex officio on the Main Street Board, which just in itself creates a really nice communication
Yes,
flow.
it does. It's
and
wonderful.
Partnerships.
Yeah.
We had heard there were a number of, that's the truth, I never got a sworn affidavit, but there were many shop owners that weren't happy. Well, they better be happy this year, because I guarantee, coming back. So there's no maybe about it moving. We will be there in August.
I have a question.
Good.
I'm concerned that I'm seeing a pattern of an uneven playing field, in that some people are being charged for public works and some people aren't. And they're all paying different amounts of money. And I realize that each event takes a different amount of services and things. But I would like to see some way that we could, level that playing field out, because the amounts that we're asking for here are certainly much smaller for what you're asking for the city services in percentage to what the grant is than compared to what the Cove was at, the Cove Triathlon
It's a lot
was asking.
more streets.
Yeah,
It's a lot
there's a fee
different
schedule
amount,
in
but-
place. All of us that do a Main Street event pay the same amount for street closure.
Right.
I'm assuming the Cove was looking at more street
More streets,
closures and
yeah.
more city services.
But at one point, last year, that was donated. And so
Right.
if we're donating some of this stuff to some people and we're not donating it across the board, or, it just doesn't seem level, or like a level playing field to me. I think we should be looking at that.
Is that a topic for the Grant Commission?
That's for the city commission.
It's
I'd like
Yeah.
to see that on a topic for the city commission,
City
because I
commission.
think we need to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you're coming back downtown. I think it's, and I would like to
So are we.
suggest, as well as that I did to Jonathan, that you figure out some kind of a way to measure the benefit to the merchants.
We actually did 2 years ago. Last year, the merchants tried to do a sidewalk sale on their own, and several of them chose not to be open, so it's really difficult to do.
Oh.
But the previous year, we actually directed people outside of the footprint of the antique fair, saying that, the businesses on 7th Street were open, the businesses farther down Main Street were open. The businesses outside the footprint who chose to be open on a Sunday said it was the best weekend day they had done ever. So people do, particularly the antique fair, because a lot of people are parked up on top of the hill or have to park out on the fringes. Walking back to their car, they tend to patronize those other businesses. And a lot of businesses which weren't normally open on Sunday will choose to open up on Sunday, which actually gives them an extra day of business.
Well, yes, and as business owners, it's our responsibility to participate and make the most of an event. We can't expect something just to ring the registers for us without doing the work involved. It is a partnership there.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and committee members. Just a quick comment to talk about how the costs are allocated for the city business. So you make a good point. Maybe something we want to visit, but just wanted to kind of be clear that the one train of thinking is that the general tax dollars of the city go in and they're to be used ratably across the city. So if somebody comes in and says, I want to do a special event, and we have to mobilize particularly, staff and resources and stuff, it's usually very appropriate for that organization or function to pay for that portion of a city business, And I think that what happened with the triathlon last year is it came in pretty quick under the radar, and we were wanting to mobilize. And so, when we talk about bureaucracy, sometimes inflexibility is the perception of bureaucracy. So we wanted to be responsive, if you'll recall, at that time. And I think it's probably thoughtful to do that, to be able to be a little bit responsive. And then the right thing to do is in year 2 to say, hey, let's make sure that we recover costs appropriately so it's not unfair to other
Right.
taxpayers and citizens who are saying, I put in my dollars and I don't get special mobilization of city resources. So just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have to say, we don't mind paying Public Works. They've saved our bacon many times on Sunday morning.
Yes.
That all?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
That, we got the Oregon City Coordinating Committee for City Ambassadors. They have their ambassador insignia.
How much cuter could they get?
You guys
Oh,
are great.
Well, you're correct. I did.
Thank you, sir.
William's buttoned up to the top, incidentally. I can't tell from here.
What?
He's got a tie under there too.
These are the,
These are cool.
This is Marge and Rolla Harding.
yes, I'd like to see.
We've been here before. And we're here to answer any questions about our grant request. This is the ambassador idea. Isn't new in Oregon City, I was told. It actually existed
100 years ago.
Almost. No, earlier, where they did the white suit affair, but it certainly is a new idea currently. And we feel strongly that it's time for Oregon City to have that type of a welcoming, promotional organization. So that kind of was the basis of our request.
Oregon City does not have a tourism director. We don't have a visitors association like so many other communities have. And some of you probably know that I've been kind of hounding about tourism. And so when this idea came through the Heritage Coordinating Committee, it was like, now this might be a good start. Using and utilizing this as a visitors association, helping with tourism. About 3-4 weeks ago, there was a reporter here from Bend that wanted to see some of the historic properties and some of the historic, hear the story. And we spent the entire day and evening, and Rocky joined us after school, going to the cemetery, going to all the historic houses, and it was technically not putting heads in. Yes, he did stay here, didn't he? By gum. Sorry about that. Anyway.
It was the kind of event that really set the tone for the possibilities in the future and what we can do and what we can accomplish as a group of ambassadors promoting Oregon City. We have our beaver coins.
Would you?
I don't know if you've seen
Have you
those
seen them?
before.
Would you
I
like-
have not seen them. I'd love to see them.
You're on my dress.
Beaver coins. I got such a kick out of that.
Thank you.
If only they had thank you much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
you need to
there's
read
kind of a
both
gift that goes
sides.
with them.
Yes.
Both sides, be sure. And it's got
Oh, okay. I had the little cards that you had made up.
Yes,
I
yes,
still
that
have one
went
of those
with
in my
that.
wallet.
Yes.
But I like this.
So you're going to tell us what all these initials mean, right?
Yeah, KMTR.
KMTRCS.
Oregon Territory.
No, the other ones.
I used to know what that meant, but I don't know.
KMTRC.
it is off of the beaver coin.
Yeah.
I see,
These are the
yeah,
It
original
is
ones.
patterned from the beaver coin.
But what does the
I don't
KMTRCS
remember.
mean?
On the beaver side.
And don't forget your free
I don't know, it's on the
elevator
beaver.
ride.
Remember, the beaver coin was created by, Rocky, you can help,
So
Abernathy.
one of Oregon
Um,
City's first is that we had our own mint because
Yeah,
we
yes.
minted our
Mhm.
own money because there was no jurisdiction in Oregon City, and so I don't remember what the abbreviations on there. You could look it up online, but that's the design was the original coin that was minted in Oregon City.
And the whole purpose, of course, of this idea being handed out as part of our presentations that we make to the public, to visitors, would be, and as I said, a prop, to kind of get their attention and offer them that free ride.
That free elevator ride.
Right.
It is
Good
free.
for one free elevator ride.
This is like sailing right over my
Yeah.
But are there any questions that we can answer?
I can't figure out whether this is the heads or the tails.
Well, it's got a tail
got
on
a
the
tail.
beaver.
But it's got a head and a tail too. I mean, a head and a
Got a
tail.
beaver tail,
Yeah,
so-
so
Oh,
I have
that's
no
right.
idea. I mean, we'd really have had a problem if they used this thing when Lovejoy and Pettigrew had
Yeah, who knows what we might be named. Portland.
This is going to be the same thing as the triathlon. You marked that it is not a nonprofit organization.
Correct.
What is
You're
that?
not a
mean?
nonprofit?
We are
We
not
are-
an official.
Oh, did
50.
she mark? We are not a non-profit.
It says, is this
We
a
are.
nonprofit organization? Yes, no, and no is checked.
Meaning that we're technically not a
We're not a
nonprofit.
501c3.
That's what it means.
We're just.
No, we're not a profit
We're just a
organization.
volunteer.
We're not a business.
Group.
Okay.
Just Oregon City volunteer.
There is a distinction between a 501c3 and an official
Yes.
nonprofit organization, which requires federal certification, actually.
Exactly.
So you have not applied for nonprofit status?
No.
Okay. And have you organized as a 501c3?
We can't afford it. There's no money.
No.
There's no fee for that.
No, we
Yeah,
are
there
an
is.
informal organization that was formed because there was no coordination going on between the heritage
The
sites.
heritage sites, and that's
So
all it
that
is.
became the basis of the organization.
And so how is the organization organized? Do you have a board?
No.
Is there a chair?
Yes, I'm the chair.
And you
And we have a secretary, we have a treasurer.
Okay, a secretary and a treasurer, and so not to put too fine a point on this organization question, because I think Jen brings up a good question, is the bank account that you have, they require either a federal EIN or a social security number. All banks do. You can't open a bank account without one.
Yeah, we have one, I'm sure,
Do you?
which I
Do
can't
we?
tell you what it is.
Oh, I don't care what the number is, but my suspicion is you might have been using a social security number rather than a
Might have
federal
been,
EIN.
and probably, if so, would be mine.
In order to get an EIN,
Because
of
we
course,
started the organization.
Yeah, to get an EIN, you
Right,
would have to
exactly.
have been organized as that.
I just,
Organization.
the application, project proposals are accepted from nonprofit organizations such as neighborhood associations or charitable organizations with a 501c3 status under the Internal Revenue Code. I just want to make sure that we're fair to everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
To me, this sounds like this is not an application we can consider, but I'm not an attorney.
Right.
The way
I don't
that's worded,
know.
it might. Yeah, this group is made up of representatives from all the nonprofit organizations, really, in the city, all the museums in the city. So, it's
It's
yes.
a compilation of all of the.
Statement on that reading, neighborhood associations are not 501c3s.
Right.
Right.
So I think they're saying community organizations or 501c3s.
And it's not linked with a business.
No,
It's not
no.
linked with an
No,
LLC
it's
like
all-
the other ones.
No, and you guys
This
are
is
all strictly
community
volunteers.
volunteer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I want to say about this event, or not event, but this committee, the coordinating committee, is it reaches outside Oregon City at outside events. And I think that's great because we do a lot of great stuff in the city, but to really reach out and tell our story and invite people and get the Sternwheeler involved.
Yeah.
Is that right?
No.
Oh.
No, that's.
Oh, is that the wrong one?
That's the wrong one.
That's the wrong one.
Okay, I like that one too.
However, we will be going to the Oregon, the
Rose
state,
Festival?
no, Heritage
Okay.
Conference, representing, just because, representing Oregon City.
There are several things that go on in the
The
state.
Governor's
Conference on
Conference.
Tourism. There's several statewide events that we hopefully can make an impact.
And the Rose Festival, is that right, too?
We did at one time, and the Rose Festival worked through us for the cemetery tours. They have since canceled,
Yeah, we
What
work
they
with our
called it.
association here in Oregon City.
but we still do things anyway.
Well, I think the outreach is great.
Oh, yeah. I do have another question.
Yes, go ahead.
Getting Oregon City's name out to a larger area other than just Clackamas County even, I think is terrific. This is definitely what we need. And I like very much the use of period attire to be able to be eye-catching. I like the use of the tokens to give someone something physical. And,
How about these?
and
Yes.
the buttons.
The cockades?
These are cockades.
Those are prize-winning. Yes, those are.
Oh, thank you so much.
Did you make those?
The question
Good
that I
job.
have, well, I have a number of questions, but right now, when you say that you go to other events representing Oregon City, the word representing to me takes a lot of weight and is usually an authorized representation. And I would just have to ask the question, by whom have you been authorized to represent Oregon City?
Sometimes it's been the county that has asked us, and we have done that for the county a number of times.
Great.
There's also no tourism organization or someone we can go to here locally within the city that we could ask for permission, unless it is the city council.
Have you asked the city commission to authorize you to be their representatives?
No, we have not approached them.
That's a good idea, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
My suspicion is you'd get their blessings in a handshake,
Yeah.
but then you could say we're officially authorized representatives. Right now, you're sort of unofficially authorized representatives.
Pretty scary group to.
Especially the mayor when he's in his, you know.
I agree. Very scary. That mayor is very scary.
I'm
You must
sorry.
be, you must
The
be
really
talking, you
old
must be
one and
talking
the
about the
new
mayor
one.
of 1851.
Something like that, I must be.
Well, absolutely. Did you think we were talking about you? He's scary guy.
I think babies cry.
No, you do.
I do.
I don't know.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So, excuse me, yeah.
Oh,
So,
I'm sorry.
the costumes that you're proposing to buy or make, that's what, about $10,000 as I require of this grant?
9,000. There's a whole list of things. Some are the coins.
Those coins aren't going to cost a whole lot. The costumes themselves I'm talking about.
The gentleman's costume.
Period
Clothing, excuse me. Period correct clothing.
5,000.
Yeah, it is very expensive.
It's very expensive.
And the whole concept revolves around the idea of wearing period clothing.
Oh, I
Not
agree.
necessarily the clothing we have
Not
on would be
this
mid
period
1860s.
necessarily.
But it could be a little later clothing, because that was worn here in Oregon City as well, or even earlier.
Sure, absolutely.
Earlier clothing.
So from where would those be procured?
Oh.
Most of them would be locally made.
Locally
Some
made
by
anyone
me.
we know?
Some by me.
Okay.
And there are
there are
professionals.
several. There are several in the state and locally that do
Would
this.
there be a profit made by the
No, this is
manufacturer?
only for
Oh, my
materials.
heavens.
Okay.
Only for materials.
That's,
yeah.
that's all I need to know. That's all I need to know.
No,
We want to make sure
no,
this is not
He's
a
never
profit.
sewn.
Yes, so he's
I was thinking
so-
No, but the question
it
is, are they
takes how much
paying-
to
are
do
they
a
paying the
website,
person
and it
to
takes
make
how
No.
long to do
The
a
answer's no.
And so they are manufactured by volunteers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would, however, I would state that if they hired a professional that was not part of their organization to do the sewing, that would still be legitimate.
Hmm?
Yeah.
There is no, it's,
Did we answer?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Oh,
Okay.
one of the other items, and Jonathan, is it okay if I mention?
She's going to answer the question she thinks we should have asked.
Okay. Because we have been asked already to be a part of Main Street.
Main Street,
the heritage.
First City.
Representing
First
the
City.
heritage section down there, and with displays, with scenarios,
Yeah.
with things
Right.
like this. So, that I would mention.
Another outlet of cash, of course, it, depending on, the amount that we have is going to determine, how far we can go, but also displays at these events, such as the Governor's Conference on Tourism. I don't think Oregon City has ever been involved directly in any of those conferences, statewide conferences, promoting our history and heritage.
More comments, excuse me. I want you to understand, I think this is a swell idea. And I think that Oregon City has been remiss in by not having a Department of Tourism or somebody coordinating all of this activity. And I've already raised my concerns about being unauthorized representatives of the city. The background of that is that awful word of accountability, in the fact that if there is no oversight by any other body in what you're doing, and you continue to do something that might not fit into an accepted branding technique of one of your partners or an image that the city later wants to, there's no accountability. And without an official organization, such as a 501c3, which are not expensive to create, there's no fiscal accounting as well. So there's no auditing. There's no one looking at your books. There's no one really saying are funds being spent wisely. You don't have a board of directors. It's that's the concern that I have about transparency and accountability.
One of the things that-
Let me first pose a question, if I may. You issue payments, do you not?
I do.
I mean, they don't go through them to pay out. They go through Michelle.
No, you
Well,
reimburse. I reimburse. for
But you've
payments.
got to have receipts and everything else. to
Correct.
it. I mean,
An invoice or a reimbursement.
right. So those monies are controlled in that way, and you see where those monies are going to, and whether they were specified in the grant.
Within the categories as listed
Right.
on the budget.
Right.
But I take your point, because that's a legitimate point, that we need to have, and we will plan on going to the city commission to be at least some kind of identification or ask their permission to represent the city.
Perhaps
What has happened
how you're
in the
doing.
past, we've been technically representing the historic houses. The McLaughlin House, also the Ermatinger House, which is the city.
You remember the Ermatinger House?
I think we've all heard of that one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and so we're representing that group, the heritage group. Those
You're
those-
representing the city's history, not the city.
That's exactly.
So
They're not a, you
Okay.
know.
we will still do that, to approach that.
Good point.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want your beaver coins back?
No, they're yours.
Really?
No, you have to have that to get that free ride.
Get the
Oh, I love it.
Otherwise, it's going to cost you.
This will not affect their decision.
My dilemma is that I had.
Wyatt wants to speak.
Yes.
Mayor and committee, I have two items. One is really important about these beaver coins, but the other one is just
Oh, he's got them too.
just to clarify. I think you all had it exactly right. That the language is that proposals are accepted from nonprofit organizations such as neighborhood associations or charitable organizations with a 501c3 status.
That's
So
exactly.
501c3 status is the status that allows you to be tax exempt for the IRS, but you can
Right.
certainly be a nonprofit organization without being tax exempt. But more importantly, I couldn't help but look up the
Good,
beaver
thank
coins
you.
because Commissioner Smith gets me all excited about these things. And so KMTRCS
Yes.
are the initials of the folks that went in together to build the coins. So James Taylor, Truman P. Powers. It doesn't quite add up, so I'm not sure how it does.
Maybe I'm like, where's
the letters. Yeah, I don't know.
You might want to recheck your facts.
These letters were the initials of the associates in the enterprise who minted these coins, and apparently none of them were held accountable because it was illegal to do it at the time, but none of them were arrested. And there was recently a coin that was auctioned off for $125,000.
Wow.
So I don't know if you get that for this, but you could get a free elevator ride. Thank you.
Nice.
Very good. Well, moving right along to Oregon City High School Band and Flag Team. Pete's Cruisin'.
Hello.
Hello. Michelle Rizzo, and I coordinate the event, so I can answer any questions you guys have.
I guess I'll, we had a request last year also, I think, but
Yes.
what I wanted to check on was this, the Oregon City High School Band and Flag Team is the entity that's coming before us with this request, am I correct?
Yes.
And the money that you're requesting of us would go to that particular group at the Pete's Cruising.
Right.
So this does not fund Pete's Cruising, it funds okay, very good. That's just clarification. The other items that are here are because they're $17,000 total is a small change. Does this include monies that are going to Pete's Cruising as well? Or are they strictly your team?
Well, our team is just parent volunteers, basically. Like, the only costs that we have are costs of the facilities. The money that we're requesting will go mainly towards marketing for the event, but all of the money from the event goes to the band.
Oh, I see. So it is the whole thing's a fundraiser for your group?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'd like to point out that it needs to be $1 less or a penny less or something than
last
It's the
time.
same.
Yeah. And it's another one that we want to encourage you to look at your expenses. when you
Yes. We actually weren't planning on asking for the grant again this year, and so we started making our initial calls of like the people who usually donate printing and things like that to us, and we had 3 of like our biggest people that help. All of them had to step away from the event, so we've had added costs from last year, but we're also trying to get our marketing to spread beyond this area, because we've had people come from Montana, we've had people come from everywhere.
Yeah.
So the main cost that we want to try to cover is getting the marketing from outside of the area so we can get more people to come in.
It's important.
Any other questions?
Do we have, what was the anticipated attendance?
Last year we had 162 cars, I believe, register. People-wise, we had, oh man, I know that at one time they counted 800 at one time, but it's from 10 to 4, so there's always people cycling in and out. But we ended up raising over $8,000 last year for the event, which is a huge jump from the year before.
Did you say 80 or 8?
8,000.
8,000.
Yeah. The year before it was 5,000, so our goal last year was 6,000, and I'm excited.
Do these cars all stage where at Clackman's
Clackman Park? Yeah.
Well, I like this. You sold 300 hamburgers and 150 hot dogs last year.
Yeah. We sold out of all of our food.
I was looking to see if we had from your report whether you had how many people came.
Yeah, we sold out of all of our food, and we had one food vendor that was there that is definitely coming back this year because we ran out of. And we had a coffee vendor that was only there for like 2 hours in the beginning because they had an emergency and had to leave, but he said that he made more money than the event the whole weekend before, so we love our coffee.
Great.
That's good.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Trick and Racy Car Club.
No.
Oh, did I jump? River, oh, excuse me, Rivers of Life Center. My apologies. Sit down.
Got your hopes up and everything.
Drop you to last
Now, this is the one that uses the riverboat.
This is the one.
Yes, I think that's great, really branching out, taking off from OMZ and utilizing all those things that we have in our area, and Portland trolleys, too. So, that's great.
This is the general manager of the Portland Spirit, Dennis Corwin, and it's really nice to have him in Oregon City. It's not been easy to bypass Oregon City with no intention of stopping.
Let me clarify, I do live here, so.
But he lives in Gladstone. But our whole goal, I'll be honest with you, was to deliver 2,000 people in 10 cruises to this community, both by trolley and by vessel. I've been doing this for 36 years, and that's why I have no hair. Okay? Because it takes a lot of work to do these cruises. And I've used many different vessels, but the Portland Spirit Organization is a class act. 5 vessels, sternwheelers, 100-passenger vessels, 120-passenger vessels. And then I know you like the trolley, and I never thought we'd ever see a trolley again. Commercially, trolleys are back in service, if you want to pay the price, in Oak Grove. They're owned by Portland Trolley Company, Twilight Limousine Service. And I came to know about this through a good friend of mine, Thelma Hagemiller, and put these two things together so that we could bring people to this city and deliver 2,000 passengers by vessel or by trolley to the museums in your city at a $10 a head price built into our ticketing prices. That was going to be $20,000 to the local museums here, Museum of the Oregon Territory specifically, and into the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. So that's kind of the big picture here of this whole thing. Our intention is to start the training required to involve young people. Behind me is Timothy Miller in green. Our costume is going to be green because we want these to be sustainable in the future.
I love it.
And the folks from the Junior ROTC Cadet Program, Timothy works with them and trains them right now in outdoor landscape work, and that was our target group because they're so well disciplined that they would be part of the interpreting group. Maybe I've given you more information, but that's the big picture.
I noticed that your grant request was more than the matching or in-kind funds.
That is correct. And Dennis,
I could actually jump in there.
Please.
This is really Jerry's organization is behind the grant. I'm simply the partner in this.
Right.
We've done cruises into Willamette Falls for years. Yeah. My dream has actually always been to be able to dock in Oregon City and unload passengers, but to sit there and wait for 4 hours and transport them was beyond our means to be able to do. So Jerry approached us. What he doesn't really show on here is, like, for my organization, none of this grant goes towards my operating costs. I cover everything. I personally attend 4 conferences a year, national and international conferences that we go all the way to actually Berlin, Germany, to bring tourists in. I see upwards of about 20,000 tour operators. And each year I focus on 1 or 2 specific products within our range to focus these tour groups and things. And this is kind of going to be the big funding next year. That's something that's covered completely by my company. So that's an in-grant, or that's an in-kind contribution that's not necessarily reflected on here.
Okay. That
The Portland Spirit pays, plus our $350,000 marketing dollars that we put towards our own organization, which this would be a part of. This is really for his nonprofit to do his portion of the onshore and tie the product together, as well as probably provide me some collateral. So when I attend these conferences, I have things to give to the individuals. But we're covering all of our own marketing.
Okay, perfect.
The big issue we face, of course, is you're approaching 1/2 of the pot.
Yes.
And then did I read in here something, Jerry, about you're going to dock in Milwaukee and...
No, the whole run takes off from Portland, from their operations locations at Carruthers Landing with free parking. That's very important. Parking in Portland is expensive. And then proceeds by trolley up through McLaughlin Boulevard into Oregon City to tour your district downtown, and then your historic district on the McLaughlin level, and then destination go to 1 or 2 of the museums, as I mentioned to you. And we're not stopping in Milwaukee. No, the vessel comes to Oregon City, comes to John Storm Park Landing at 12 noon, where a plated lunch is served by professional chefs with
with his organization, very fine food. And then while they're eating, the final trolley tour components that have gone through Oregon City will come back to John Storm Park and then get on the vessel. People on the vessel get on the trolleys and do a reverse kind of route, shall we say. But the important point is that at John Storm Park, it's never been possible to pick up people there routinely. Very hard for a vessel to pull in and wait for people, as he was saying, to want to board. We have, history with Paul Simonis trying to make that work. It did not work. The Willamette Jet Boat folks, same reason. So what this does is put the vessel there for an hour, hour and a half, where people can board from the hotel. Hotel likes us a lot. And then your citizens can board also. So it makes it possible to embark and disembark people in Oregon City, which we couldn't do before.
Okay.
Tell me again, what was
And
your...
sir,
I'm sorry.
How much time would these people, these tourists, be here? Have free time in Oregon City?
In Oregon City,
when they disembark the trolley and board.
Certainly, the trolley arrives here leaves Portland at 9:30, arrives here at 10, and is here in Oregon City for the first batch of people until 1 o'clock, and then the second batch of people that have been on board the vessel, which is left at 9:30 also a.m. Those folks would join the trolley that had been on the vessel and go on back in throughout Oregon City's destinations that we've identified in the grant proposal. So basically, there's about 4 hours of contact time by trolley that they're en route or here for at least 3 of those hours. And then by vessel, they're on the vessel for 3 hours coming up, and then they get on the trolley. So in other words, we're allowing people to participate one by water, one by land, and 2 by sea.
So on the vessel side, how long would they be here before they board the trolley?
On the trolley?
After they disembark the vessel?
Yes.
How long would they be here before they embark the trolley?
When they disembark the vessel, they will go directly onto the trolleys, and then the trolleys will take them through all the destinations in Oregon City that the first group went
And
on.
are there any stops there, or is it just driving?
Yes, no, it stops at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center and the Museum of the Oregon Territory. And we're hoping to do something in the downtown, but it strictly depends on what's feasible.
I'm just thinking about the merchants.
Yeah.
Right, it's time requirements, and that's why we do need the trolley for the transfer. Was always my struggle, because from the docking location, it's too big of a walk, particularly for most of the clientele that would take this trip. You can't expect that big of a walk, so dropping them right off in the retail district would be the key.
Well, I'm sure our merchants would like an hour.
I think that'd be great, yeah.
So that kind of brings me to my question. How are you going to partner maybe with the different groups, the heritage groups and stuff, to kind of bring that package together? Because I took a symposium, a tourism symposium last year. They had one at Abernathy, and they really did talk about what you were talking about, making sure that there's a package or something to market when you go to the tourism events. So are you gonna be able to pull that together and also market other things that Oregon City has to offer with your package of the tours?
Short answer is yes.
Okay.
I've been with Portland Spirit for 20 years, and I have a big history and background in the tour and travel. I work very closely with Travel Oregon, Travel Portland. I'm on the board of directors for the Oregon Tour and Travel Association, which is a business group. And I have found over the years that partnership is everything. And even at these conferences, when we're outside of these projects, what I find happening is we sell the state first. State first, and then you sell your own product. And so, I might sit down with a tour operator, and they're never going to even ride a boat, but I know they're taking a motor coach from Portland, and they're heading to Silverton. My goal is to get them off I-5, and I've been doing that for years. And as a group, that's what we do. It's like, oh, you're missing this, 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 and this, and you get them to stop and get those coaches to stop in these locations. And Oregon City, to me, is always the no-brainer. I mean, going down 99 through Canby, Aurora, and all the way to Silverton is the only way to do it. Why do you want them going down I-5? So that's a kind of long-winded answer. But the local partnership, what we would do is have this entire thing packaged, and we've already talked to several partners. So when I would go, I would be selling this trip itself. I wouldn't be selling the components of the trip. And if they were supplying their own coach and said, well, which I get occasionally, hey, I have my own coach, can we meet you in Oregon City and then do something? I'd say absolutely. And then I outline other things they can do if they're going to spend an overnight here. Or, hey, now I can give you a hotel. Now I can give you other things to do here if you're going to flush this out into a 2-day event.
So you can impart all that information.
Oh, yeah,
in the
and
package.
I do. I mean, I already do
Great.
that in general with a lot of the organizations I belong with, but this is, to me, kind of a natural tie-in.
The problem for my my operation as Earth Crusader is doing river tours with Willamette jet boats. One is they were strictly dependent upon weather. One bad weather day and you've got 50 people very upset. These are all covered in closed vessels. The second thing is ticketing. You know what? I'm 67 years old. I love what I'm doing. I'm a great tour guide. I like Rolla and Marge. That's my passion. I want these people with their 5 telemarketers sitting there 5 days a week in their offices to do all the booking and the scheduling and the reporting back as to what people liked or didn't like. That would be a tremendous boon, and let me organize the interpretation and so forth to make this thing work. It's very hard to do all those things, ticketing, marketing, and then run the event. So we have very qualified operators that have done this effectively for 20 years now.
Sherry, did you say the price was $10?
No.
Oh, I think that was for the museum admission.
Right.
Oh.
We had already itemized part of the ticket, that $10 per ticket would go towards the museum admissions.
Thank you.
Right. In the last several years, I've had to keep staying within the market of what I can sell on the Willamette jet boats, and our market has gone up to $85, $95 per person for basically a 4 or 5 hour trip. This is an 8-hour trip for around $85 to $95. Okay, and you may say that's high. Back 25 years ago, when I first got into doing river tours because it was an educational experience, I was charging at the Environmental Learning Center $75 per person for a similar venture. So I guess my point is you get for what you pay for. In this case, absolutely impeccable plated dinners on board. I don't have to cook salmon anymore. I love it, but I don't have to do it. Secondly, all this marketing ability of them going to the National Tour Association with documents like this that would feature Oregon City and Go West and all the other places that they market throughout the America, basically. And then the final thing is 2,000 people in these 10 trips would be delivering a $10 admission to the museums of our choice. We'd also like to work with the Oregon City Tourism team to identify really what you might want us to do specifically besides the museums.
Rocky, go ahead.
Wow. Okay. Couple of questions. We're all looking at the price tag, which is huge, which I don't mind in the sense that if it's something that creates an ongoing benefit to the city, that that is a not necessarily a stopping point, because giving $10,000 to an event every year for 10 years is doing the same thing. If we could, so I guess I'm really questioning that upfront money, because I think the one great thing about this is probably the only thing on this list that can say how many people they're bringing in, because they're bringing them in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every other event we can say, well, we brought in this many people, but we don't know how many we actually brought in. But if you put them on a boat and bring them,
you know.
You do. So I guess my question would be, I wouldn't have so much of a problem, seeing this kind of an expense if we knew that, some of the proceeds were then being put in to keep this going annually, where we wouldn't have to make, because this is not an investment that we would be making year after year, right?
Correct.
But if we saw that this has potential, and I think it does, to have something on a regular basis in the summer that brings people in from Portland or other places. So I think if whatever the ticket price breakdown is, what percentage of that or how much of that is going into kind of seeding the next year, so that this is not a huge ask in the future, so that this keeps going.
Take that?
Sure. Well, the Portland Spirit costs to perform their function of both safely getting people here and then feeding them is about $60 per person. All right. The other costs have to do with the guides that we need to provide, 2 on each trolley for safety and other reasons. That's 4 guides. And then 2 on the vessel. Okay, so 6 guides involved. There is a way we could possibly reduce the cost on this by working with Marge and Rolla and their ability. Matter of fact, I would involve them in our training, certainly, because that would, my goal is to involve youth and give them an opportunity to shine in front of the public by having been mentored by skilled people like, say, Marge and Raleigh, myself, and of course Thelma Hagenmiller. Those are some of the better, and you too, Rocky, are some of the better interpreters in this area. All right, so the other price, $30-some per person, 30 to 35, has to do with us administering this stuff and doing the training, okay? And in that $30 to $35 is $10 for the museum, so it's really $25, you see. And I hope we're breaking this down. So what it comes down to is it's about, from a long-term sustainability standpoint, Dennis's organization would do these kind of things routinely if there was a market. Developing the market is the problem. That's not happened yet in Oregon City. So, to say that we'd invest $10 per person or something for a future effort, we certainly could do that. I would like to see these things done routinely. The jet boat does not work for my purposes from a standpoint of weather. One weather cancellation, you got a lot of people mad. So I don't think that this opportunity is sustainable over the long term. I hope I answered the question. $60 per person roughly to serve the vessels and its needs of serving people. The other has to do with us training people and providing $10 per head to the museums.
Okay, because when you look at the budget, a lot of the expenses labeled coming from OCCIT look like they would be expenses that would have to come next year if it was doing it next year, right? So, and the only place I could see for any savings, I guess, is that you only train these people one time and then they're good for the next couple of years. But that's not the case. If you're
I would say the marketing
students,
materials
right,
and everything, like I said, with the Port and Spirit, we're going to be self-sustaining. I'm going to the trade shows. I'm putting the marketing dollars into it. I really look at this as the investment. This is Jerry's investment to get his portion of this infrastructure to establish. And once we do so, I mean, the ticket price, we have already allocated a fairly substantial portion of the ticket price to cover Jerry's organization for future purposes for this.
I know that the training would have to be done every year, right? I mean,
yes, because you will lose
because you're going to
volunteers.
lose these people.
Yeah.
But one of the things we have discussed actually is that training starts becoming in-house into the Portland Spirit organization, that I actually start hiring these individuals for that purpose through his organization, so that we would absorb that training cost.
It's the initial thing. There's 6 guides needed, as I mentioned to you. I'd like to see 6 of those be professional people. We're trying to train a cadre of 12 total, so that 6 of them are professionals that will be around in perpetuity, even if I'm not around because of my age or whatever. Others will be around and trained to do this kind of thing. The other thing I guess I was going to point out was Rivershore Hotel is one of our training sites. They want to do it there because I think it'd be good for their staff to learn the details that they don't know what to talk about. And then the other portion of the whole thing has to do with lost my train of thought. In the future, being able to bring other vessels. I mean, the Sturmler Columbia Gorge is up in the Columbia Gorge much of the time, but it's possible. You have it in Portland sometimes too. That this thing could evolve with interest to bring in vessels that we couldn't dream of having here. It's just an issue of assuring a provider of service that he has enough people to cover his expenses. It's very expensive to operate these vessels.
Good.
I think Oregon City needs this. A real shot in the arm. It'd be great. I'd like to know about partnerships insofar as, has there been any discussion about tying your tours in with the First City ambassadors, so that you would?
That's what I was just mentioning, that because of the nature of the training of the people involved at the skill level of Marge and Rolla Harding, people
Yeah.
like Rocky, Thelma Hagenmiller, and myself, I'm in that category to a certain point. I see a way we could reduce the expenses here if you can't allocate all of this by involving them more directly with us too.
In period attire and
Pardon?
In-period attire?
Well, if you'd like. I mean, our theme was green and sustainability for the young kind of look, but we're not saying we couldn't do that. I have some period costumes I wear for my quartet occasionally, too. So, yeah. The last part I forgot to mention was that the young people that get involved in this man, as my understanding, had a theater background from Colton.
I did.
And he went on to be a deckhand and a server, and he's now the general manager of this company. And this is a entry-level company that hires how many people per year? 300 people per year?
No, we're about 80 people a year, but we have about 250 on staff.
You have 250 on staff, okay. So my hope is that the folks from the Oregon City Senior High School that we're involving would have a chance to go to work as deckhands, servers, or other things within his company. So he's assured me that that's a possibility. Yeah.
The second question that I have is that I know that there are efforts afoot to have a volunteer organization staffing the train depot, and I think tying this type of tourism in with that, where people could take a train and get on a boat, have a water experience, tour the city, get back on the train and leave. I know that there's work afoot to get volunteers to staff that train depot. Maybe could be some coordination with that as well. And I don't know if you've explored that aspect of it at all.
But what we're trying to do is reach out to the museums to find out what their training capabilities are, at least to let us know what we need to tell about when we get there, and then what they will do to take over the continued interpretation until it's complete. And that depot opportunity certainly seems excellent. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Now, it's time for Trick and Race Car.
For a little while, huh?
Well, you're a prime event in Oregon City, I'll tell you that.
Okay, I'm Mike Sims.
I'm Jim Estes.
Right. And this will be the 5th year that we've done the Oregon City Car Show. The grant request basically is for money to do publicity to bring spectators. We've been very successful in bringing cars and their drivers and everything. And, the first year we had 2,500 or 3,000 people in terms of spectators. The next year we had about 5,000. In the last 2 years, we've had approximately 8,000 each year. And we've gotten good reviews from the downtown merchants. Several merchants have told us that the car show is the busiest day that they've ever had. And
we do a poker walk, and you addressed about how many people are directly related to the merchants. Mm-hmm. Well, the first year we did a poker walk, we had 6 merchants took part in that, and they gave out cards and stuff. Last year we had 22 merchants that had it, so we had to do over 5 hands.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So
Very cool.
that tells me that the merchants are getting involved in this too.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
They need to.
yeah, the people go to the merchant, and they have to go in the store in order to draw a card for their poker hand. And,
Very cool.
and this has been very successful and gotten good reviews.
And the money request is down from last year too.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
noticed
for
that.
doing that.
yeah.
And you're not planning on moving it to the interpretive center.
No, not this year.
Rocky, you got issues, don't you?
We're doing it downtown, or we're not doing it. I mean, we already do a show in Clackamat Park.
Yeah, we do another big show in Clackamas Park.
And,
Guys do great.
but it doesn't draw as many people as downtown because people want to come downtown.
It's the ambiance.
The bad thing about downtown is it costs 3 to 4 times as much to put on the downtown show as it does the Clackamat Park show because of the facilities and the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
This last year, we got additional participation from people down the Cottage Road, down on 12th Street, and a few other people. And we also got support from them, even though the car show doesn't go down there. They ran their own raffles and things, and so, and then after hours, they had after-hours events, which we announced as part of the car show. We had announced, go down to the Ice House, and they have a special. And this year, we're, in addition to our regular PA system, we're also going to have low-power FM, so that anyone in the downtown area can listen in on the radio, FM radio, to the announcements and the music, and so the individual merchants can have the FM radio on in their establishment and get the announcements and so forth. Yeah.
If some of you remember years back, some of you won't, is the Kissin' Good Guys.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, which used to be on Burnside.
Yeah, right.
Right
Kissin'
there.
Radio.
Kissin' Radio.
92 point whatever it was. But, so we've tried to add to the show each year. The poker walk in particular has been very good, and we've gotten more exhibits, typically around Liberty Plaza. But and it's free for spectators, and it's a very family-oriented event. And again, our request for the grant money is primarily for advertising to bring in spectators. Yeah.
Great. Very good. Well, my granddaughter learned what a V8 was.
Yeah, but we can teach her new things this year. Superchargers and nitrous and things like that.
That's great.
Very good.
Any questions?
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. While the committee deliberates, I have some entertainment value on the coins.
Oh, okay. Back to the coins.
So we're back to the coins. Yeah, and you all have been so patient in sitting through this process. You will learn something for today. So apparently there was quite the controversy back in the 1800s when these coins were printed. Rocky knows all this stuff. So I went back to the Numismatis, which is a monthly publication on the study of the collection of currency, including coins, in the early 1900s. Probably pronounced it wrong, right, William?
Numismatist.
Numismatist. Yeah. So the March 1906 edition had an article on the history of coinage in the Oregon country. And apparently at that time, that was when when the United States government was establishing the territories. Am I doing okay? Across the United States, and there was a time period of about a month or so when there was a real need for this currency, and the territory hadn't quite been established. So they hired a company called the Oregon Exchange Company that was formed by persons of, let me find it here, that had they were recognized for their ability and integrity. And these are the names of some of the people. And if you hold up your coin, you'll see the KMTRCS. Except that I just got on the wrong page. So keep deliberating, and I will have it in 1 minute. I'm stalling for the use in the audience.
Okay, you can tell about my elevator pass that I have.
I want to talk about that too, because that's pretty amazing. So the company was composed of William Kilbourne, Mr. that I can't pronounce, Magruder, James Taylor.
There you go.
And then they left out a couple of folks.
I guess so.
George Abernathy, that's not on there. They got kind of ripped off. And William Wilson is not on there.
But George had his own money.
Did he?
Yeah, he had little stones from his store from the creek. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
He had his own currency.
Excellent. See, okay, thank you. Now I'm really learning. So William Rector was the R, James Campbell was the C, and Rocky Smith was the S. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Noyes Smith.
It must have been my dad, because I'm not that old.
Thank you for bringing the coins. It went true. Do you want to talk about your pass for the elevator?
Well, they used to issue them.
Yes. Yeah.
And you still have it in your wallet.
Yeah, I have mine in my wallet, too.
Thank you, Mayor.
It's not that old.
This is from
The original.
Yes.
I wasn't even born.
That might be coming your way.
The city used to issue them. No, but it was a big deal to get that. The mayor was.
Yeah, I've done my writing and working with the one.
Okay, so that's.
Gosh, I've changed this all around.
Well, you,
I know.
yeah, you can take them.
What a mess.
You can take this. So it's in this order, and then of course this is out. So these are them.
I just did it because it helped.
The elevator person will laugh and have it probably for another free ride.
That's a lot of money.
Remember, you're ranking 1 through 9 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 through 9.
Do you want us to hand these to you?
Yes, that would be good. Thank you.
Are we taking a little break?
Yeah, actually, people were working, so yeah, let's go ahead and take 5-10 minutes after you finish your.
Put them out. Let me tell you, this was one of the hardest.
Yes, it was.
OCCIT grant requests ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was difficult.
It was just really brutal.
Down.
I do. That's me, but.
She put it up on the screen, so you do the presentation thing.
Jeez, it's awful.
Because they can look at the screen. You don't
Oh, okay. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so as you can see with the sort, and by pulling out the triathlon and making them a 0 rather than a 10, they're at the top. But
No, the running total isn't set up yet.
you want me to? I never do that until I get the go-ahead. So if you would like me to, I'll go ahead and put
Well,
it.
why don't we make we got tremendous ranges in most of those categories too.
Okay, wait a second. Where is it actually saying where the order is?
The benefit, I guess, to the running total is to see if there are you got some real close rankings on
So
some
this
of these.
is the top.
Yes.
Is the average?
Is there?
So if you look at the average column,
Yes.
Yeah.
we're doing the lowest to the highest.
Okay.
Is how it's been sorted.
Okay.
So.
And
So which one's more popular?
The lowest.
The lowest.
So you did ones with a bit, you know.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
3 is the most popular.
So the lowest would be number, the chicken race, you had 3.56, and then on down.
So
Okay.
could do the running.
Wait,
let's go ahead and set up the running total, and we'll
Because
see
you
where the
voted
breaks
1,
occur.
You voted for a 1, while the average is voted to 3. That's at the highest.
Okay, so this is the highest.
Yes,
This is the lowest.
correct.
Okay.
So I'm putting in the number as listed, and we'll make adjustments.
Oh, yeah, this is the allocation. Is that yours?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, well, we have a point right now of a break between the Oregon City band flag team, and the next one is the Clackamas Historical Society's thing that throws it out. We had 60, how many thousand available?
60.
60 available with the
60
contingency
available
of
with the
5.
fungible funds of $5,000.
Yeah.
Fungible fudge.
So.
I mean,
So can you show us what 60 available would be?
Yeah, can I clarify though? We need to, chicken race, you got, the chamber is lower, heritage. McLaughlin Memorial, you they could only go to
130.
1389.
Yeah, to bring it down to $1. I think that's right. Yeah, 1389, right. Which won't make much difference. And then
The high school down $1.
Yeah.
Are we going that?
Yeah,
I'm just.
Markdown special.
Just not making the assumptions. I want to make sure I'm.
And then Main Street website, those two are, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Those two are new.
The Main Street needs to go down $1 too.
No, no.
The
Main Street up
above.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
the celebration.
Yeah.
For.
It's true.
$4.99.
Thank you.
Well.
Okay, now can you show us if we were only doing 60 at 100%, where would we be?
Well, that's a 60, 449.
That's right there. Yeah,
That's
that's
right
right.
there. That's what the running total shows.
Here.
You can go clear down to 63, really.
Right there.
Yeah. You know, we could probably adjust the request a bit to, you know, you got this close range in between the Oregon City High School flag team up to Oregon City Heritage Coordinating Committee. I'm sure we can drop the request down a bit on these and fund it to the amount.
That's kind of what I hope.
But I don't think we're going to be able to drop it down enough to fund the last two.
No, I'm not going to.
I
You
don't
should.
think you're going to get to the last two.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last two, I'm not suggesting you do so. I'm talking about number 7, 8, 7, 5, and 8. They're all very close.
Yeah.
But that brings us to 63 if we do, but the first and last two.
Well, we could also just scratch the least two, and that would take us down to 60.
I agree.
Take us to 63, huh?
Yeah, well, I think in terms of flexibility, somebody that requests, say for 28,000, if we brought it down to 27,000, somebody that requests 14,500, bring it down 1,000, so forth. And we can get all those included, and they're very close. The last two are out. I mean, they're just not. There's no point in even trying.
Right, but that only brings us to 3,300 over.
No, I'm just giving you some examples of what we could do.
Well, we can do a combination of both. We can take, well, as you're suggesting, take the bottom two off.
Yeah.
And then, but I don't think it's fair to take the same dollar amount of both 4 and 9, since one is twice as much as the other.
No, I don't.
I don't agree.
No, I agree with you. I think the 28 and the 14 is
So if you
very.
took 2 out of number 9 and 1 out of number 4, that'd bring us down pretty close to 60,000.
Yes, it would.
I've got a problem. I would like to see maybe us recommend partial funding of everybody. I don't know why we're just looking at full funding.
Well, I think in larger projects that there is more room for, I don't want to say padding, but there's more wiggle room in larger budgets than there is the smaller ones. The smaller ones, I think that they have honed those so tiny, it's a shame to penalize them to make
No,
them even tinier.
I agree with that, but we've got 4 here that are substantial.
Yep.
It's also kind of the point of ranking, is to determine, you know, I would think the ones that are lower ranked would either would have a higher percentage withdrawal.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, we have our ranking, and our ranking
Yeah.
puts 2 of the largest ones out, and that's the decision that the group has made.
We made that decision that we would throw the larger ones out?
No, in terms of funding. Well,
In terms of
I mean,
ranking, we
the
did.
ranking is
Yeah.
the basis of our decision making.
Yeah.
And that's a big jump in ranking, too.
It is a big jump in ranking. I mean,
So you're suggesting we take it down to 60,000?
well, I'm suggesting maybe we can drop the amounts that we award down through 8 to get 8 to total up about 60,000. That's
That's what I
It wasn't exactly 60,000. How much do you have exactly?
Right, Mayor. I think, and I heard some of the committee members say, I think we could award the 63,387
Yeah.
because we had that flexibility with the additional $5,000.
Okay. And it seems to me then that makes it easy. You could have a motion to that effect.
Move to approve the $63,387 for the OCCIT grants for 14 and 15.
Second.
I second that.
Moved by Betty and seconded by Carol. I'll ask all in favor. If we get a nay, then we'll take a vote count. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Well, thank you all for bringing those forward. I think two of them just proved a bit too challenging in terms of funding. Well, four of them had large funding, but you got a limited capability. And thanks for the great job, people. Thanks for all the submissions.
Thank you all for staying here as long as you did. So all your grants were funded except for the Main Street website and Clackamas Community.
That really bothers me.
Michelle, what was it?
Clackamas County Historical.
Clackamas County Historic Society. Oh, yes, you're welcome.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
Well,